Hello, humanoids! This is Ian T. Mello, and welcome to Squared Circle History, the podcast that chooses a promotion, focuses on a specific year, and gives a comprehensive and unbiased look at the best matches, moments, promos, and feuds. I encourage you to check out the actual footage of the wrestling events that are being discussed because, and I cannot stress this enough, the intent of this podcast is to make new fans of the product of the yesteryear. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan and I love all of the history that there is of televised professional wrestling. So let's travel through wrestling history together here on Squared Circle History. Today we are going to focus on World Championship Wrestling in 1992, and what a year it was. To put you in the right time frame, let's go through what was happening in pop culture during the year of 1992. In theaters, we saw the release of memorable films such as Reservoir Dogs, Batman Returns, My Cousin Vinny, A Few Good Men, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Last of the Mohicans, The Bodyguard, The Crying Game, Scent of a Woman, Unforgiven, Of Mice and Men, Glengarry Glen Ross, Juice, Romper Stomper, Three Ninjas, The Lawnmower Man, Lethal Weapon 3, Alien 3, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Candyman, Army of Darkness, Cool World, Hoffa, Chaplin, Malcolm X, The Babe, Bad Lieutenant, Sister Act, Beethoven, A Muppet Christmas Carol, The Mighty Ducks, Fern Gully The Last Rainforest, Aladdin, A League of Their Own, Home Alone 2, and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. In record stores, we saw the release of memorable albums such as Dirt by Alice in Chains, Incesticide by Nirvana, The Chronic by Dr. Dre, Automatic for the People by R.E.M., Dirty by Sonic Youth, Check Your Head by the Beastie Boys, Blues for the Red Sun by Caius, Bricks Are Heavy by L7, Psalm 69, The Way to Succeed and the Way to Suck Eggs by Ministry, What the Album by Redman, The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion by the Black Crowes, Opiate by Tool, Eric Clapton Unplugged, Grave Dancers Union by Soul Asylum, What's the 411 by Mary J. Blige, Experience by The Prodigy, Images and Words by Dream Theater, Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, Core by Stone Temple Pilots, Bone Machine by Tom Waits, Slanted and Enchanted by Pavement, Angel Dust by Faith No More, Harvest Moon by Neil Young, Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth, The Predator by Ice Cube, Broken by Nine Inch Nails, Los Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1 by White Zombie, and the debut album from Rage Against the Machine. On television, we saw the debuts of notable shows such as Batman the Animated Series, Dateline, Beakman's World, The Real World, Sailor Moon, Absolutely Fabulous, Martin, Barney, The Big Comfy Couch, Mad About You, Highlander, Bananas in Pajamas, Def Comedy Jam, Melrose Place, Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, and X-Men the Animated Series. With the WWF under investigation by the federal government and Vince McMahon under fire, Hulk Hogan took a hiatus from the promotion, with the trajectory of the company completely changing. But all this paled in comparison to what was happening in World Championship Wrestling. WCW President Jim Herd was replaced by Cowboy Bill Watts, ushering in a new, hard-hitting, competitive style, which led to an exciting year for the promotion. Join us on this trip as we journey back to WCW in 1992. The January 4th episode of World Championship Wrestling saw Jim Ross at ringside interviewing Paul E. Dangerously and the United States Champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. Dangerously brought up the tragedy of Magnum TA's career-ending injury and said that Sting was close to suffering a devastating injury of his own at the hands of the Dangerous Alliance. He said that like Magnum TA, Sting was going to have to look into the mirror and see a shell of his former self. Rude said, "Sting, as far as Ravishing Rick Rude and the Dangerous Alliance are concerned, you have one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel." He directed his hatred towards Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, with Rude warning him not to mess with his woman, Medusa. Rude said that Steamboat was going to have to answer to a rude awakening. Footage aired from Christmas night in the Omni, where Flying Brian Pillman defended the Light Heavyweight Championship against Jushin Thunder Liger. Both men attempted a leapfrog, colliding with one another in midair. Liger climbed up the ropes, with Pillman catching up and back suplexing the challenger hard to the mat below. Both men's shoulders were on the mat, with Liger lifting his shoulder just as the referee counted 3. Jushin Thunder Liger was crowned the new WCW Light Heavyweight Champion. Following his victory, Terrence Taylor joined Alexandra York for an interview with Jim Ross. Taylor said that he didn't need a computer to win matches, smashing the computer on the ground. He said that from this day forward, he's on his own. The Natural Dustin Rhodes battled Arn Anderson, who was accompanied by Paul E. Dangerously. A great bout ensued, with Dustin gaining an early advantage by attacking the right leg of Anderson. Rhodes smashed Anderson's leg repeatedly against a steel ring post and locked in a figure 4. Anderson fought through the pain, with Dangerously barking at his client to fight on. The words of wisdom paid off, with Anderson planting Rhodes with a spine buster. Behind the referee's back, Dangerously used his cell phone to bash the head of Rhodes. Anderson followed it up by ramming Rhodes against a steel ring post, shoulder first. Rhodes battled back with one arm and refused to stay down. Anderson said, "I can't believe it." Dangerously once again bashed Rhodes with the phone, with Anderson looking to capitalize with a pile driver on the concrete floor. Rhodes reversed it, backdropping Anderson onto the concrete. Back in the ring, Rhodes hit Anderson with a running bulldog. Dangerously distracted the referee, allowing Beautiful Bobby Eaton to hit an Alabama jam off the top rope, crashing onto Rhodes. Anderson flung his arm over Rhodes for a pin attempt, with Rhodes barely kicking out. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat raced in to inform the referee of the interference. The show ended without a conclusion to the bout. WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling held a super show in the Tokyo Dome, taking place on January 4th. The Steiner brothers battled Sting and the Great Muta in an exciting bout. In the opening minutes, Rick leaped off the top rope, taking down Sting with a bulldog. Sting bounced back and soared across the ring with a Stinger splash. Rick moved, with Sting crashing into the corner. Scott tagged in and hit Sting with a Tiger Bomb, followed by a tilt-a-whirl slam for a 2 count. Sting reversed a tombstone and drilled Scott head first into the mat. Muta tagged in, but so did Rick, who hit Muta with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex off the top rope. Rick tossed Muta across the ring with a German suplex, with Muta again kicking out at 2. Scott tagged in and hit Muta with a fireman's carry off the top rope. Muta found himself extended over the shoulder of Scott, with Rick jumping off the top rope, hitting Muta with an elbow drop for a 2 count. The action spilled outside the ring, where Rick nailed Muta with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex onto the concrete floor. Back in the ring, Muta got his second wind and drilled Scott with a back suplex. Sting tagged in and hit Rick with a Stinger Splash. Muta tagged back in and attempted his cartwheel handspring elbow, but Rick snatched him up and nailed a German suplex. Things broke down, with all 4 battling it out in the ring. Muta and Sting took down Scott with a double bulldog. Sting then pressed Muta overhead and tossed him at Rick to send him tumbling over the top rope and to the floor. The Stinger then leaped off the top rope, landing on Rick on the concrete floor. Muta then dove through the ropes, taking out Scott. Both Sting and Muta celebrated in the ring, allowing the Steiners to dive off the top rope with flying clotheslines. Scott attempted a tilt-a-whirl slam, but Sting countered by rolling Scott up for the 3 count. Meanwhile, Rick had Muta covered, but referee Bill Alfonso failed to see it. Following the match, both teams shook hands and showed one another respect. The January 11th episode of World Championship Wrestling saw the World Tag Team Champions, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and the Natural Dustin Rhodes, team with the All-American Ron Simmons to face Dangerous Alliance members Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, who had Paulie Dangerously and Medusa in their corner. It was an exciting bout, with Rhodes scoring the pinfall on Zbyszko after a running bulldog. Medusa soared off the top rope with a flying leg drop onto Rhodes. Zbyszko proceeded to spike Rhodes with a brainbuster before scurrying away with the rest of the alliance. The January 18th episode of WCW Pro featured Sting, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Marcus Alexander Bagwell, teaming to face Dangerous Alliance members, the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, the World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin, and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. Steamboat suffered a lot of damage, with the Dangerous Alliance taking their turns wearing down the Dragon. Sting and Bagwell saw enough and raced in to save their partner, with all 6 battling it out and the referee losing control. Bagwell covered Austin, with the referee attending to other issues and unable to make the count. Eaton soared off the top rope, crashing onto Bagwell with the Alabama Jam. Austin slumped over Bagwell and scored the pinfall victory. The brawling continued, with Rude pounding on Bagwell with a chair until Sting made the save. The Clash of the Champions 18 took place on January 21st and began with Harley Race leading Big Van Vader and Mr. Hughes to the ring to face the Steiner brothers. Within minutes, Scott Steiner hit Mr. Hughes with an impressive belly-to-belly suplex. Shortly after, both Rick and Scott leaped off the top rope, crashing into Vader and Hughes with Steiner lines. Vader shifted the momentum, squashing Rick in one corner. He tried again, with Rick taking down Vader with a Steiner line and then hitting a belly-to-belly suplex. a second Steiner line sent Vader tumbling to the floor. Rick attempted a dive, with Vader catching him and smashing him against a steel ring post. Back in the ring, Vader climbed to the top rope, with Scott shaking the ropes to offset the balance of the big man. Rick ran the ropes, tossing Vader off the top rope and crashing to the mat with a belly-to-belly suplex. Scott tagged in, taking down Vader with a German suplex and then climbing to the top rope. Vader caught Scott in midair and power slammed him to the mat. Rick and Mr. Hughes tagged in, with Rick tossing the massive Hughes around with ease. In desperation, Vader knocked Rick to the floor and joined Hughes in attacking Scott. Hughes held Scott in place, with Vader charging. Scott moved, with Vader accidentally striking his partner. Race hopped onto the apron, with Rick punching him in the face. Rick leaped off the top rope, taking down Mr. Hughes with a bulldog and scoring the pinfall victory. Flying Brian Pillman and Marcus Alexander Bagwell battled Tracy Smothers and Terry Taylor in a hard-hitting bout. A highlight saw Taylor suplex Pillman over the top rope and to the concrete floor below. In the end, Bagwell rolled up Smothers with a sunset flip and picked up the pinfall victory. Tony Schiavone interviewed the new WCW Executive Vice President, K. Allen Fry. He promised a year full of surprises and introduced the newest member of the broadcast team, Jesse the Body Ventura. Draped in a feather boa and wearing tie-dye, Ventura said that WCW was the wrestling of the future. Schiavone introduced the man that would receive a World Championship title match at SuperBrawl, Sting. The Stinger proceeded to sign the contract and then posed for the crowd. Cactus Jack battled Van Hammer in a brutal Falls Count Anywhere match. The action began on the ramp, with Hammer shooting an object from his guitar, hitting Cactus in the face. Hammer dove off the top rope, with Cactus striking him with a vicious clothesline. Cactus charged at Hammer, sending the two of them soaring over the top rope with a wild clothesline. Diving off the second rope, Cactus smashed his own back on the concrete floor, attempting to sunset flip Hammer. They battled onto the ramp, where Hammer Irish whipped Cactus against the ropes and delivered a power slam for a 2 count. Battling further up the aisle, Hammer reversed a hip toss, sending Cactus crashing to the concrete floor with a thud. Hammer dove off the ramp, taking down Cactus with a flying clothesline, but only got a 2 count. They battled out to the parking lot, where Cactus tossed a traffic cone at the head of Hammer. Cactus tackled Hammer onto a bale of hay and drove the horns of a cow skull into the side of his face. Hammer retaliated, choking Cactus with a bull rope before brawling into a holding pen where livestock roamed. Disguised as a cowboy, Abdullah the Butcher ambushed Hammer, waffling him across the back of the head with a shovel. Cactus scored the pinfall victory on Hammer in the rodeo arena. Abdullah attacked Cactus and tried to drown him in a watering trough. Missy Hyatt was outside attempting to call the action, but got swooped up by Abdullah, who placed her in the watering trough against her will. Cactus and Abdullah continued brawling as the show went to a commercial. The Freebirds debuted their new music video, supported by a full band. Michael P.S. Hayes and Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin sang their way through the crowd, with cameras cutting back to the music video periodically. Kevin Nash portrayed a new character, this time wearing a black and pink suit, and calling himself Vinny Vegas. In short order, Vegas defeated Tommy Rich with his finishing maneuver, Snake Eyes. In the main event, Sting teamed with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to battle the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude and the World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin. Sting and Steamboat taunted Rude and Austin, further instigating them by switching in and out behind the referee's back, which the fans cheered loudly for. Things broke down, with all four brawling and the referee losing control. Austin tossed Sting off the ramp and joined Rude in pummeling Steamboat. The referee backed Rude to his corner just as Austin lifted Steamboat in the air. Sting soared off the top rope with a high cross body, knocking Steamboat on top of Austin. With both Sting and Steamboat on top of Austin, the referee made the 3 count. The brawling continued, with Rude hitting Steamboat with a rude awakening. Austin dodged a Stinger Splash, with Sting striking the top turnbuckle. Rude hit Steamboat with a second rude awakening, and then began whipping him with Paul E. Dangerously's belt. Security rushed in, with Rude, Austin, and Dangerously fighting them off. Sting covered Steamboat, with Rude whipping the bare back of the Stinger. The January 25th edition of World Championship Wrestling saw the Natural Dustin Rhodes battle Arn Anderson, who had Paul E. Dangerously in his corner. Anderson leapfrogged Rhodes, but landed hard on the mat, clutching his ankle. Dangerously distracted Rhodes, offering him money to end the match. Anderson was faking the injury and ambushed Rhodes, spiking him with a DDT. Rhodes fought back and planted Anderson with a bulldog. The Cruncher Larry Zbyszko raced in, ambushing Rhodes to cause a disqualification. Barry Windham ran to the side of Rhodes, fighting off the rest of the Dangerous Alliance. Windham got a hold of Dangerously's phone, using it to batter the knee of Stunning Steve Austin. Rhodes used a chair to fend off the Alliance as Windham cranked in a figure 4 on Austin. Windham and Rhodes escaped, just as the Alliance mustered up the courage to save their partner. The February 7th edition of the Power Hour saw Stunning Steve Austin defend the World Television Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. They started strong, with a series of lightning-fast pinfall attempts. Steamboat dove through the ropes, colliding with Austin on the floor. A desperate champion climbed to the top rope, with Steamboat tossing him to the canvas. Steamboat jumped off the top rope, hitting Austin with a big chop. Medusa threw a kick behind the referee's back, with Steamboat catching her leg. This was the distraction Austin needed, taking down Steamboat with a clothesline. They battled outside the ring, where Austin dropped Steamboat throat first onto a steel guardrail. 1 minute remained, with both men battling tooth and nail. The 10-minute time limit expired, with Austin retaining the title. Austin continued his assault and held up Steamboat for Medusa to throw a kick. Steamboat moved, with Medusa striking Austin. The February 9th episode of the main event saw Jim Ross interview Paul E. Dangerously and the World Tag Team Champions Arn Anderson and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. They discussed the upcoming confrontation between the champions and the Steiner brothers. Anderson cut a great promo, promising they'd come out with the titles still around their waists. In the main event, Sting and the Steiner brothers battled Big Van Vader, Cactus Jack, and Mr. Hughes, with Harley Race in their corner. It was hard-hitting, with the crowd cheering on Sting and the Steiners. Things broke down, with all 6 battling it out on the floor. In the ring, Sting dove off the top rope, taking down Mr. Hughes with a high cross body and scoring the pinfall victory. The February 15th episode of WCW Pro saw Ravishing Rick Rude defend the United States Championship against Flyin' Brian Pillman. Paulie dangerously stood at ringside, cheering on his client from the corner. A great back-and-forth bout ensued, highlighted by Rude diving off the top rope and Pillman drop-kicking him in mid-air. Pillman connected with Air Pillman, with Rude barely kicking out. Rude rolled to the floor, with Pillman diving over the top rope to take down the champion. Back in the ring, Pillman dove off the top rope, taking down Rude with a high cross body. Dangerously distracted the referee, with Pillman's pinfall attempt going unnoticed. The action continued, with Rude dropping Pillman throat first on the top rope. Rude nailed the Rude Awakening and scored the pinfall victory. The February 22nd episode of World Championship Wrestling featured Sting, Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat against the Dangerous Alliance members Larry Zbyszko, the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, and the World Tag Team Champions Arn Anderson and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. Paulie dangerously shouted advice to his team from ringside while the action ensued. Rhodes suffered a beatdown, with the Dangerous Alliance members double-teaming the Natural behind the referee's back. Things broke down, with all 8 brawling in a chaotic scene. Back in the ring, Steamboat soared off the top rope to take down Zbyszko with a high cross body for the pinfall victory. Rude ambushed Steamboat and nailed the Rude Awakening. SuperBrawl II took place on February 29th from the Mecca in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with Jesse the Body Ventura riding a Harley-Davidson to the ring to join Jim Ross on commentary. In an all-time classic, Jushin Thunder Liger defended the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship against Flyin' Brian Pillman. They jockeyed for position, countering one another's maneuvers in the opening minutes. Pillman sent Liger tumbling to the floor with a flying head scissors and connected with a baseball slide to the face to send the champion crashing against the steel guardrails. They battled on the mat, frustrating Pillman, who showed more aggression. Liger threw off Pillman, leaping to the top rope and connecting with a moonsault. The champion sent Pillman to the floor with a dropkick, winning over the crowd. This only motivated Pillman, who locked Liger in a sitting abdominal stretch. Liger fought out of it and attempted to lock in a bow and arrow submission, with Pillman quickly racing to the ropes to break the attempt. The champion sent Pillman crashing into the corner with an Irish whip and connected with a dropkick to the face. On commentary, Ventura said that Liger reminded him of the Predator. Pillman took down Liger with a crucifix for a 2 count. He followed it with a belly-to-back suplex on Liger, again only for a 2 count. Liger battled back, attacking the knee of Pillman and locking in a figure 4 leg lock. The two began slapping one another in the face until Pillman rolled over to reverse the hold. They rolled to the ropes, with the referee prying the two apart. Liger applied a half crab on Pillman, who countered by nailing the champion with an enziguri. Pillman nailed a flying head scissors and then charged at the champion. Liger backdropped Pillman to the floor, climbed to the top rope, and hit a somersault senton onto Pillman on the floor. They battled onto the apron, leading to Pillman nailing Liger with Air Pillman. Pillman proceeded to suplex Liger over the top rope and to the floor. Soaring off the top rope, Pillman connected with a high cross body onto Liger on the floor. Pillman dove off the apron, with Liger moving and Pillman crashing against a guardrail. Back in the ring, Liger dove off the top rope, with Pillman drop-kicking him in the face in mid-air. Pillman attempted a missile dropkick off the top rope, but was met with a dropkick from Liger. Battling back, Pillman power-slammed Liger for a 2 count. Liger hit Pillman with a German suplex, with Pillman barely kicking out. The champion suplexed Pillman onto the top turnbuckle, only for Pillman to front suplex Liger to the mat below. Pillman nailed a high cross body off the top rope, with Liger barely kicking out. Liger nailed the Liger bomb, with Pillman again kicking out. The champion attempted another, with Pillman reversing it into a Hurricanrana for a 2 count. Pillman bounced back from an Irish whip and drilled Liger with a DDT. The challenger made the cover, with Liger grabbing the ropes to break the pin. Both men bounced off the ropes, colliding with one another in midair with cross-body attempts. They battled to the top rope, with Liger nailing a superplex for another 2 count. Liger attempted a diving headbutt, with Pillman rolling out of the way. Pillman hooked his feet behind the arms of Liger, spinning him over and bridging with a pin to score the pinfall victory. Liger shook the hand of Pillman and handed over the belt, with Pillman crowned the new light heavyweight champion. Barry Windham teamed with the Natural Dustin Rhodes to battle Dangerous Alliance members, the Cruncher Larry Zbyszko and the World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin, who had Medusa in their corner. It was a hard-hitting bout, with the Dangerous Alliance double-teaming Windham behind the referee's back to gain an early advantage. Rhodes tagged in and cleaned house, with things breaking down and all 4 brawling. Austin gained the advantage by leveling Rhodes with a big clothesline. Medusa got involved, slapping Rhodes across the face. Rhodes stalked Medusa up the aisle until Austin ambushed him on the ramp. Back in the ring, Rhodes suffered a beatdown at the hands of both Austin and Zbyszko. Things again got out of hand until Windham dove off the top rope, taking down Zbyszko with a flying clothesline to score the pinfall victory. Ravishing Rick Rude defended the United States Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The pace was set quickly by Steamboat, who used high-impact maneuvers to gain an early advantage over the champion. Rude gained momentum, dropping Steamboat throat first across a steel guardrail. The champion maintained control in the ring, wearing down the challenger. In the blink of an eye, Steamboat caught Rude off guard and applied a figure 4 leg lock in the middle of the ring. Rude managed to reach the ropes and break the hold, and plowed down Steamboat with a stiff clothesline to the back of the neck. The champion leaped off the top rope, smashing Steamboat over the head with a fist drop. Rude jumped off the top rope again, nailing Steamboat with a forearm smash. The two collided in mid-air to slow the pace down until Rude locked Steamboat in a sleeper hold. Steamboat fought out of it and locked in a sleeper hold of his own. Rude broke out of it by nailing Steamboat with a chin breaker. The champion climbed to the top rope, with Steamboat meeting him up there and hitting a big superplex to the mat below for a 2 count. Wobbly-legged, Rude stood to his feet, with Steamboat taking him down with an enziguri. Steamboat continued his assault, launching himself off the top rope and crashing onto Rude with a big chop. The mysterious black ninja that stood at ringside in Steamboat's corner hopped onto the apron and bashed him over the head with a cell phone. Rude crawled on top of an unconscious Steamboat and scored the pinfall victory. Backstage, Missy Hyatt barged into the dressing room of the Dangerous Alliance looking for an interview. The usual suspects were there, including Paul E. Dangerously, who was dressed in a black ninja outfit. In the main event, Sting challenged the World Heavyweight Champion, the Total Package, Lex Luger, who was accompanied by Harley Race. The Stinger hit a Stinger Splash in the early minutes, with Luger shaking it off and plowing down Sting with a running clothesline. Sting rolled out of a back suplex attempt and hit Luger with a German suplex. The Stinger hoisted Luger up for a torture rack, with the champion rolling out of it to safety. Sting drilled Luger with a DDT, with the champion retreating to the floor for advice from his advisor. The Stinger locked in a Scorpion Deathlock, with Luger scurrying to the ropes for safety. A thumb to the eye slowed Sting down, with Luger taking the advantage. Still, Sting battled back, rubbing the face of the champion across the canvas and running his eyes across the top rope. Sting charged at Luger, who moved, with the Stinger tumbling over the top rope and to the floor. Race attempted to pile drive Sting, who backdropped his way out of the move. Back in the ring, Sting leaped off the top rope, taking down Luger with a high cross body and scoring the pinfall victory. Sting was crowned the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. The March 7th edition of World Championship Wrestling featured footage from a press conference that was held after SuperBrawl II. Sting celebrated his World Heavyweight Championship victory with K. Allen Fry and took questions from the media. Ravishing Rick Rude interrupted, with the rest of the Dangerous Alliance in tow. Rude said that he was the #1 contender and proposed a toast to the new champion, Sting. The champion refused the drink, with Rude throwing it in Sting's face. Sting attacked, with a wild brawl ensuing between the two that had to be broken up by WCW security. The March 14th episode of World Championship Wrestling saw the WCW Light Heavyweight Champion Flying Brian Pillman battle Richard Morton. Pillman was grounded in the early minutes, with Morton attacking the legs of the champion. Morton wrenched in a figure-4 leg lock, with Pillman getting a burst of adrenaline and reversing the hold. Pillman hit Morton with an enziguri, but failed to capitalize, allowing Morton to continue his attack on the legs of the champion. The champion persevered and used his signature pinning combination to score a pinfall victory over Morton. The March 21st edition of World Championship Wrestling saw the debut of J.T. Southern, who played an electric guitar on his way to the ring. Southern was in direct competition with Van Hammer, claiming he could wrestle and play guitar, unlike Hammer. An interview aired that Jim Ross had conducted with Big Van Vader, who had harsh words for the World Heavyweight Champion, Sting. Vader said, "I fear no man, and I feel no pain." He said, "When the bell rings, it's Vader time." Footage aired from Worldwide Wrestling, with Sting competing in an enhancement match. After winning his match with the Scorpion Deathlock, Sting was ambushed by Big Van Vader. Sting hit a Stinger Splash, with Vader unfazed and angry, tossing the referee aside. The Stinger bashed Vader across the back with a steel chair, but Vader didn't flinch. Sting dove off the top rope with a high cross body, with Vader catching the champion and power slamming him to the mat. As Harley Race encouraged Vader, members of the locker room raced in to check on Sting. The March 21st episode of WCW Pro saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in action against Arn Anderson. Paulie dangerously attempted to interfere, with Steamboat putting a beating on him. Ravishing Rick Rude interfered, ambushing Steamboat and choking him with his own karate belt. Steamboat fought out of it and chopped Rude against the throat. He then wrapped the karate belt around the throat of Rude, dragging him around the ring and then hanging him over the top rope. The March 28th edition of World Championship Wrestling saw Eric Bischoff interview Van Hammer at ringside. JT Southern interrupted, playing his guitar and asking if Hammer actually could play. As Southern made his exit, Hammer agreed to an eventual bout against Southern. Scotty Flamingo cut a promo about how great he believes himself to be. Wearing dark sunglasses and a leather cowboy hat, Flamingo said that women follow him wherever he goes. Flamingo said that he's the greatest sports commodity in the world and issued a warning. He said that he was coming for Flying Brian Pillman's Light Heavyweight Championship. The April 4th episode of WCW Pro saw Dangerous Alliance members United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin, and one half of the World Tag Team Champions Arn Anderson face Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, The Natural Dustin Rhodes, and Barry Windham. Paulie dangerously lurked around ringside, barking orders at his clients. It was exciting from the bell, with the fans cheering wildly once Steamboat and Rude were in the ring at the same time, reigniting their ongoing rivalry. Steamboat chopped away at the muscular chest of Rude and sent him tumbling over the top rope with a big clothesline. Once back in the ring, Rude didn't fare much better, with Steamboat wrenching away at his arm. Windham tagged in and continued to attack Rude's arm until Rude backed Windham into the corner of the Dangerous Alliance. Thinking fast, Windham fought off his competitors but was ultimately hit in the back by a knee from Anderson. This allowed the Alliance to shift the momentum and wear down Windham. Both Rude and Windham collided heads, with Windham falling on top of Rude. The referee made the count, with a woozy Rude barely kicking out. Anderson tagged in, but Windham locked him in an abdominal stretch. As dangerously distracted the referee, Austin dove off the top rope with a double axe handle onto Windham. The action continued, with Anderson diving off the second rope, but Windham kicking him square in the face. Dangerously pulled Anderson to his corner, where Rude tagged in. Windham flopped across the ring and made the tag to Steamboat, with the fans roaring in approval. Steamboat pummeled Rude and knocked the other members of the Alliance off the apron with punches to the face. Diving off the top rope, Steamboat chopped Rude over the top of the head. Steamboat dove off the top rope with a high cross body, making a pinfall attempt on Rude. Austin broke it up by smashing Steamboat across the back with a steel chair to cause a disqualification. All six battled it out in the ring, with Steamboat getting a hold of the chair. While Rude and Austin scurried away, Steamboat bashed Anderson repeatedly with the chair. April 4th was the debut of WCW Saturday Night, a studio format show featuring pre-taped matches hosted by Jim Ross and Jesse the Body Ventura. Ron Simmons was interviewed in studio, saying that he wants to be the first black World Heavyweight Champion. Footage aired from Worldwide Wrestling, where Medusa interfered in a match between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. Medusa slapped Steamboat, who instinctively slapped her back. A remorseful Steamboat showed compassion, allowing Ravishing Rick Rude to bash him across the back with a steel chair. The Dangerous Alliance continued their assault on Steamboat on the floor, leaving the Dragon a bloody mess. The April 18th edition of Saturday Night saw Dusty Rhodes join Jim Ross to host the show for a live studio audience. World Heavyweight Champion Sting joined them for an interview, and talked about the thrill of winning the title. Sting discussed his upcoming encounter with Big Van Vader, saying he's going to have to change his tactics in order to keep the title. The champion said he'd be willing to defend his title anywhere across the globe, mentioning the Great Muta and Tatsumi Fujinami as potential challengers. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat cut an intense promo on ravishing Rick Rude, saying his family has had to suffer looking at his broken nose. Wearing a face mask, Steamboat said, "You might have broken my nose, but you have not broken the dragon's spirit." The April 25th edition of Saturday Night featured a studio interview with Nikita Koloff, who cleared up a burning question: what are his intentions? Koloff defended his past actions and said that he credits the American Dream Dusty Rhodes for setting him straight. He said that he was at the SuperBrawl press conference to talk to the World Heavyweight Champion Sting, not fight him. Koloff mentioned Sting's recent rib injury at the hands of Big Van Vader and said if the champion needs help, he's only a phone call away. He brought out a young fan with her face painted, saying that her favorite wrestler is Sting. Koloff said that Sting is his favorite wrestler too, and he'll sign to face Vader anytime. The May 2nd episode of Saturday Night saw Jason Hervey join Jim Ross in hosting the broadcast. They interviewed Barry Windham, only to be interrupted by a heckler in the crowd. Windham confronted the heckler, getting right in his face. It was Paulie dangerously in disguise, and he ran away, terrified. Footage aired of Eric Bischoff interviewing the World Heavyweight Champion, Sting, who said that despite suffering a broken rib, he's ready to compete in War Games at WrestleWar. Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Paulie dangerously, who had Medusa by his side. Dangerously called Ricky the Dragon Steamboat a pervert, warning him to stay away from Medusa. Distraught, Medusa said that Steamboat let the air out of her tires. Medusa screamed that she just wanted to be left alone. Out came Steamboat, making a grand entrance by blowing a fireball. Dangerously ran away screaming, with Medusa calling Steamboat a woman beater. The United States Champion ravishing Rick Rude and Medusa cut a promo, with Rude saying that soon Medusa won't have to see Steamboat's scaly skin again. He called Steamboat's wife a sea hag and didn't blame him for hitting on Medusa. Rude warned Steamboat that Medusa was his woman. Footage aired from a press conference with K. Allen Fry announcing the seeding for the NWA World Tag Team Title Tournament. The first part of the tournament would take place at the next Clash of the Champions, with champions crowned at the Great American Bash. In the main event, Arn Anderson battled Big Josh in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was a hard-hitting bout, with Paulie dangerously getting involved to rake the eyes of Josh behind the referee's back. Anderson caught Josh with a sunset flip, holding onto the ropes to pick up a victory in the first fall. The second fall saw Josh take the fight to the floor, setting Anderson against a ring post. Josh charged with a clothesline, with Anderson moving, and Josh striking the steel ring post. Anderson attacked the injured left shoulder of Josh, but soon found himself in a precarious position. Soaring off the second rope, Anderson landed right into an atomic drop from Josh. He rolled Anderson up, hooking the tights and scoring a pinfall victory to tie things up. In the final fall, Josh wrenched a figure 4 leg lock on Anderson, who screamed in pain. They scratched and clawed at one another, desperate for a victory. Anderson ducked a clothesline and planted Josh with a spine buster to pick up a 3 count and win the match. The May 9th edition of Worldwide Wrestling saw Jesse the Body Ventura interview Paulie Dangerously, discussing Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Dangerously said that Steamboat was part of a conspiracy against him, orchestrated by K. Allen Fry. He called Fry a jerk for trying to take down the Dangerous Alliance. Dangerously said that the Dangerous Alliance is hot like lava, and it's a matter of time until he takes over, and Fry is looking for a job. In the main event, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was in action against Cactus Jack. Steamboat showed his agility in the early minutes, skimming the cat until Cactus hit him with a running clothesline that sent them both tumbling over the top rope and crashing to the floor. Cactus tossed Steamboat back into the ring with a running suplex, and then ripped at the Dragon's protective mask. Steamboat hit Cactus with a belly-to-back suplex, and then dove off the top rope with a high cross body to score the pinfall victory. The May 9th episode of Saturday Night saw Nikita Koloff battle Mr. Hughes in a hard-hitting bout. Koloff slammed Hughes off the top rope in an incredible feat of strength to bring the fans to their feet. Soon after, Koloff plowed down Hughes with a Russian sickle and scored the pinfall victory. Randy Owen from the band Alabama joined Jim Ross on set to interview the United States champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. Immediately, Allen asked Rude why he left the WWF, with Rude saying that he was held back, but they couldn't hold him down. Rude said that it was time to move on to bigger and better things. Ross asked Rude about the allegations that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat has been stalking Medusa. Rude said that they weren't allegations, they're fact. Medusa made her way to the set, standing by Rude's side while he answered questions from the crowd. A woman in the crowd claimed to be having an affair with Steamboat, while another confessed to the same thing. The two women shouted insults at one another, with one getting carried away by Doug Dillinger. A third accuser came forward, with Rude apologizing to Steamboat's wife. Footage was shown of the Steiner brothers defeating Arn Anderson and Beautiful Bobby Eaton in a steel cage match to win the WCW World Tag Team Championships. In the main event, Stunning Steve Austin defended the World Television Championship against Barry Windham in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Windham battered the champion all the way to the floor. Back in the ring, Windham maintained control until Austin caught him with a chin crusher to shift the momentum. Blood dripped from the mouth of Windham, with Paulie Dangerously taunting him at ringside. Windham superplexed Austin off the top rope, floating over to score a pinfall victory and win the first fall. The second fall saw Austin leap off the apron, crashing down on Windham with a double axe handle. Back in the ring, Austin wrenched in a camel clutch, but Windham refused to give up. Austin nailed Windham with the stun gun and picked up a pinfall victory to tie things up. In the final fall, Austin dove off the second rope with an elbow drop, with Windham rolling out of the way. Austin continued his advantage, lifting Windham up for a body slam, with Windham's legs swinging and knocking down the referee. Dangerously handed Austin the belt, which he swung at Windham, who ducked and rolled up Austin. A wary referee made the 3 count, with Windham winning the World Television Championship. Austin ambushed Windham with the belt and dropped him on the top rope with a stun gun. The former champion grabbed the championship and made his exit, with officials tending to an injured Windham. The May 16th episode of Worldwide Wrestling saw Tony Schiavone interview Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who denied all allegations that have been made against him. Steamboat cut a promo on Rude saying, "I don't want your woman, I want the United States heavyweight belt." In the main event, Nikita Koloff battled Big Van Vader, who was accompanied by Harley Race. To even the odds, Koloff had the American Dream Dusty Rhodes in his corner. Just as the bell rang, Race attacked Rhodes on the floor, with the fight going up the aisle and through the curtain. Vader ambushed Koloff and locked him in the Scorpion Deathlock. Koloff battled back and body slammed Vader to bring the fans to their feet. Vader fought back, squashing Koloff with a big splash, but only picking up a 2 count. Koloff charged at Vader, using a Russian sickle to send him tumbling over the top rope. The two brawled on the floor, leading to a double countdown. Vader charged at Koloff, who moved, with Vader smashing his face on a steel ring post. Race returned to ringside, with Koloff inching towards him, but Vader making the save. Race held the legs of Koloff, with Vader hitting multiple big splashes. The May 16th edition of Saturday Night saw Harley Race introduce his latest client, the mysterious masked man from Thailand, the Super Invader. In a 2-on-1 handicap match, the Super Invader made quick work of his opponents for an easy victory. WrestleWar 92 took place on May 17th and began with the Fabulous Freebirds defeating Greg the Hammer Valentine and the Tailor-Made Man to win the United States Tag Team titles. Flying Brian Pillman defended the Light Heavyweight Championship against his former tag team partner, the Z-Man Tom Zink. It was fast-paced from the start, with the two at a near stalemate until Pillman took down Zink with a flying head scissors to gain the advantage. Zink went for a rapid series of pin attempts to no avail, with Pillman striking the challenger with a huge chop to shift the momentum. Pillman attacked the knee of Zink, wrenching in a single-leg Boston Crab. The champion locked in a figure-4 leg lock, with the two slapping one another repeatedly across the face. Zink reversed the hold, with Pillman reaching the ropes to break the hold. Pillman sprung off the top rope with Air Pillman, with Zink catching and power slamming the champion to the mat. Zink made the cover, with Pillman barely kicking out. Pillman took down Zink with a crucifix pin, with the challenger barely kicking out. They battled to the top rope, where Zink shoved Pillman to the mat. Zink leaped off the top rope with a high cross body, crashing onto Pillman and flipping him over. The two bounced off the ropes, smashing against one another in midair, with both looking for a high cross body. Zink tossed Pillman high in the air, with the champion landing on his face. The challenger made the cover, with the champion barely kicking out. Moments later, Pillman leapt off the top rope, with Zink hitting him with a big boot to the face in midair. Zink made the cover, with Pillman kicking out just in time. The challenger launched off the top rope with a missile dropkick, with Pillman deflecting it. Pillman made the cover, picking up a pinfall victory to retain his title. The WCW World Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers, battled Tatsumi Fujinami and Takayuki Iizuka to determine the number one contenders to the IWGP Tag Team Championships. Both teams gave it their all in a hard-hitting encounter from the start. Scott lifted Iizuka up over his shoulder, with Rick executing an elbow drop off the top rope, smashing onto Iizuka. Rick tossed Fujinami across the ring with an impressive release German suplex. Fujinami fought back and lifted Rick up on his shoulders, with Iizuka diving off the top rope with a high cross body. Rick caught Iizuka in midair, power slamming him to the mat. Fujinami began attacking the left leg of Rick, wrenching away at it in the middle of the ring. With blood dripping from his nose and one eye swollen shut, Iizuka tagged in. He was quickly taken to the mat with a tilt-a-whirl slam via Scott Steiner. Moments after, Scott nailed Iizuka with a pump handle slam for a 2 count. Things broke down, with all 4 throwing punches in the ring and the referee forced to maintain order. Fujinami took Scott to the mat, with the crowd chanting USA, rallying up the Steiners. Rick tagged in, slamming Iizuka to the mat with a belly-to-belly suplex. Fujinami broke up a pinfall attempt by kicking Rick upside the head. Scott tagged in, taking both of his opponents down at the same time, with Rick then diving off the top rope, crashing onto Fujinami and Iizuka with a double Steiner line. Scott set Iizuka onto the top rope, with Fujinami ambushing him and nailing a back suplex to the mat. Iizuka hit a German suplex, with Scott kicking out. Fujinami tagged in, with Iizuka joining him in drilling Scott with a brutal spike pile driver. Iizuka jumped off the top rope, hitting Scott with a missile dropkick to the chest. Rick took down Iizuka with a belly-to-belly suplex, with Fujinami breaking up a pinfall attempt. All 4 battled it out, leading to Rick hitting a big belly-to-belly suplex on Iizuka off the top rope. Rick picked up the pinfall victory, with the Steiners declared the winners in an intense bout. In the main event, Sting's squadron battled the Dangerous Alliance inside War Games. The Dangerous Alliance consisted of the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, the World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin, Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and Beautiful Bobby Eaton, with Paulie Dangerously and Medusa cheering on from the floor. Sting's squadron consisted of the World Heavyweight Champion Sting, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes, and Nikita Koloff. The initial 5-minute period saw Windham and Austin brawling around both rings in the early goings. Austin ran across one ring, dove over the ropes, and clotheslined Windham in another ring. The champion attempted to swing from the roof, only for Windham to pull on his legs, forcing Austin to fall face first on the canvas below. Windham began whipping Austin repeatedly against the cage walls, busting him open. After 5 minutes elapsed, referee Randy Anderson initiated the coin toss, landing on heads to give the Dangerous Alliance the advantage. Rick Rude rushed into the cage, ambushing Windham. Covered in blood, Austin dove off the second rope, hitting Windham with a flying clothesline. Both Rude and Austin grabbed Windham by the hair and threw him face first against the cage repeatedly. After 3 minutes, Steamboat rushed into the cage, battering both Austin and Rude with ease to bring the fans to their feet. The Dragon hung from the roof, catching Rude with a Frankensteiner and then punching him repeatedly in the face. Arn Anderson was the next to join the fray, spiking Windham with a DDT and planting Steamboat with a spinebuster. Both Rude and Anderson took a leg and applied a Boston Crab on Steamboat. A bloody Windham broke things up, but was soon attacked by Anderson. Rude drilled Steamboat with a pile driver and then tossed him from one ring to another. Dustin Rhodes entered next, taking the fight to Anderson and then plowing down Austin with a big clothesline. In another ring, Steamboat locked Rude in a Boston Crab. Windham trapped Anderson's head in the gap between the two rings, lifting his head vertically and drilling him down repeatedly. While Steamboat locked Rude in a figure 4 in one ring, Rhodes pounded on the bloody face of Austin in the other ring. Zbyszko entered next, with Rhodes immediately attacking him with a flurry of punches. Medusa began to climb to the top of the cage, lowering Dangerously's cell phone into the waiting hands of Anderson. Sting raced to the roof, scaring Medusa and causing her to climb down to the floor. Meanwhile, Anderson used the phone to bash the face of Steamboat. Sting joined the battle, pressing Rude high over his head and slamming him up against the roof repeatedly. The Stinger then threw Anderson face first against one cage wall and then backdropped Austin against another. Sting began raking the now bloody face of Anderson against the cage wall. Both Sting and Steamboat grabbed each leg of Rude, lifting him in the air while trapping his head between the two rings. Eaton was the final member of the Dangerous Alliance to join the match, stomping on his opponents while Zbyszko and Rude loosened the top rope. Koloff was the final member of Sting's squadron to enter, beginning the match beyond. We found out quickly that Koloff was loyal to Sting, saving him by shoving him away and taking a clothesline from Austin. Koloff and Sting joined hands to take down Anderson and Austin with a double clothesline. They sealed their allegiance by embracing and then went back to battering their opponents. Covered in blood, Rhodes kicked Zbyszko square in the face with a big boot. Sting raced across one ring, connecting with a Stinger splash on Anderson. The Stinger put Anderson in the Scorpion Deathlock, which was quickly broken up once Eaton clobbered Sting with a double axe handle. Eaton then removed the top rope, grabbing the metal turnbuckle. Meanwhile, a blood-soaked Rhodes applied a figure 4 leg lock on Zbyszko. Koloff rammed the bloody head of Austin repeatedly against the top turnbuckle. In a major turning point, Eaton held up a wary Sting, with Zbyszko swinging the metal turnbuckle. Sting dodged it, with Zbyszko accidentally striking Eaton against the left shoulder. After Sting disposed of Zbyszko, he began wrenching at the now injured arm of Eaton. Screaming in pain, Eaton surrendered, with Sting's squadron declared the winners. Dangerously entered the cage, getting in the face of Zbyszko and screaming at him. The Dangerous Alliance began pointing fingers at Zbyszko, blaming him for the loss. Meanwhile, the winners marched away up the aisle, most bloody and all battered. The May 23rd edition of Saturday Night saw Diamond Dallas Page on set with a new segment called Down and Dirty with DDP, interviewing his guest, Paul E. Dangerously. DDP introduced a piece of footage, which was security camera footage of Dangerously paying off one of the accusers that claimed to be having an affair with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Dangerously was angry, asking DDP if he knew what he'd done. Out came Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, with the Dangerous Alliance surrounding Dangerously. Outnumbered, Steamboat began to walk away, but instead leaped over the Alliance and began tearing at Dangerously's clothes. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham brawled with the Alliance, while Steamboat chased after Dangerously. A vignette aired from the offices of the Fabulous Freebirds Enterprises, with Eric Bischoff attempting to interview a busy receptionist. After nearly getting escorted out by security, Bischoff was saved and soon conversing with the CEO of Freebirds Enterprises, Precious. They found the Freebirds making prank phone calls in a conference room. Precious presented Michael Hayes with a recording contract, which he nearly signed in pencil. In the main event, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Dustin Rhodes, and Nikita Koloff battled Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and Beautiful Bobby Eaton in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Paulie dangerously stood at ringside and even got heated at Zbyszko in the early goings. Out of nowhere, Steamboat soared off the top rope with a high cross body, pinning Zbyszko to win the first fall. In the second fall, Steamboat, Rhodes, and Koloff each locked in a figure 4 leg lock in a wild visual. The tides turned on the floor, where Eaton dodged a clothesline from Rhodes, who in turn smashed against a steel ring post. Dangerously tossed his cell phone into the ring, which soared over the head of Eaton. Rhodes intercepted the phone and smashed it over the head of Eaton, causing a disqualification to end the second fall and tie things up. Things heated up in the third fall, with Anderson drilling Steamboat with a DDT. Anderson stomped on the face of Steamboat repeatedly and raked at his face. Eaton tagged in, continuing the assault on the Dragon. Steamboat fought back and made the tag to Koloff, who cleaned house. Anderson restrained Koloff, with Zbyszko charging at him with a right hand. Koloff moved, with Zbyszko punching Anderson in the face. This allowed Koloff to plow down Anderson with a Russian sickle to pick up the pinfall victory and win for his team. Dangerously blamed Zbyszko for the loss, screaming in his face. Anderson went nose-to-nose with Zbyszko in a tense moment. The May 30th edition of Worldwide Wrestling saw the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude battle the Natural Dustin Rhodes. Rude was quick to complain to referee Bill Alfonso that Rhodes was being too rough. Rhodes continued his assault, tossing Rude around the ring with ease. Taking the fight to the mat, Rhodes pulled at the chin of Rude with a modified camel clutch, with Rude screaming in pain. Rhodes broke the hold and jumped in the air, looking to land on Rude's back. But Rude outsmarted Rhodes, rolling onto his back and getting his knees up to provide a harsh landing for Rhodes. To add insult to injury, Rude hit Rhodes with a reverse atomic drop. Rude connected with a swinging neckbreaker, with Rhodes kicking out of a pinfall attempt at 2. The assault on Rhodes continued, with Rude connecting with a big chop off the top rope onto the top of Rhodes' head, and only scored a 2 count. Rhodes battled back, with Rude quick to stall his momentum by striking with a blatant low blow. The match continued, with Rude setting Rhodes up for a tombstone pile driver, but Rhodes reversing it, drilling Rude with a tombstone of his own. Rhodes made the cover, with Medusa putting the foot of Rude on the bottom rope to break the count. The Natural charged across the ring, with Rude moving and Rhodes tumbling to the floor. Medusa struck Rhodes with a kick to the chest behind the referee's back. Back on the apron, Rhodes leaped over Rude with a sunset flip into the ring. Rude tried to punch his way out of it, with Rhodes moving and Rude punching the mat. Rhodes struck with a running clothesline on Rude, but only for a 2 count. He followed it up by planting Rude with a running bulldog and made the cover, but Alfonso was distracted by Medusa. Rhodes argued with the referee, with Rude attempting an ambush, but Rhodes thwarting his efforts by clotheslining him over the top rope. Alfonso tried to hold Rhodes back to allow Rude to return to the ring, but a frustrated Rhodes tossed the referee aside. This allowed Rude to bash Rhodes across the head with the United States Championship. Rude hit the Rude Awakening and scored the pinfall victory to win a hard-fought match. The May 30th episode of WCW Saturday Night saw MTV's Headbangers Ball host Ricky Rackman join Jim Ross to host the show. they interviewed Arn Anderson, who said that it was time for him to do something for himself. Anderson said that he was issuing a challenge to the World Heavyweight Champion, Sting. He said that it was going to take a consummate pure wrestler to defeat Sting. Anderson said, "I've always had one rule of thumb. If I take one limb away from him, a three-legged table is no use to anyone, and that's my strategy." Stunning Steve Austin came to the ring with Paulie Dangerously for a match against the Cruncher Larry Zbyszko. Prior to the start, Dangerously admitted that there was dissension within the Dangerous Alliance. Dangerously said that as of late, Zbyszko has been trash. This caused Zbyszko to turn his back, with Dangerously whipping him back around. Dangerously said that Zbyszko was supposed to obey him, and now had to prove himself. Zbyszko proceeded to slap Dangerously across the face, with Austin ambushing Zbyszko to kick off their match. The two brawled, with Dangerously screaming at Zbyszko, telling him repeatedly that he was fired. Dangerously tried getting involved, with Zbyszko pulling him over the top rope and tumbling to the mat. As the referee attended to Dangerously, Zbyszko drilled Austin with a pile driver. Beautiful Bobby Eaton interfered, leaping off the top rope and crashing onto the back of Zbyszko with a knee drop. Austin slumped his arm on top of Zbyszko and scored the pinfall victory. In the main event, the Great Muta faced Brad Armstrong in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Muta dominated the first fall, wearing down Armstrong on the mat. Armstrong battled back, leaping off the top rope to take down Muta with a high cross body for a 2 count. He attempted another, with Muta rolling through for another pinfall attempt, with Armstrong kicking out. Muta made rapid pinfall attempts, eventually keeping Armstrong's shoulders down for a 3 count. In the second fall, both men battled back and forth, wearing one another down. Muta connected with a handspring elbow and then hit a moonsault off the top rope to pick up another pinfall to win the match with 2 straight falls. The June 6th episode of WCW Saturday Night saw Paulie Dangerously join Jim Ross in studio to host the show. Their guest was Medusa, discussing the upcoming bikini contest with Missy Hyatt at Beach Blast. Hyatt interrupted, engaging in a war of words with Medusa. This led to Medusa removing her shirt to reveal a bathing suit, riling up Hyatt, who began to take off her own clothes before getting escorted away by security. In the main event, Barry Windham defended the World Television Championship against Arn Anderson in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was hard-hitting, with the action too intense to be contained in the ring. On the floor, Windham dodged a clothesline, with Anderson striking the steel ring post. Back in the ring, Windham wore down the injured shoulder of Anderson. Windham locked in a sleeper hold, which Anderson countered with a chin crusher. Anderson attempted a superplex, with Windham hanging onto the top rope and the enforcer plummeting to the mat below. This allowed Windham to hit a flying lariat off the top rope and score a pinfall to win the first fall. In the second fall, the fight spilled to the floor, where Paulie Dangerously taunted Windham. While Anderson distracted the referee, Dangerously used his cell phone to smash the back of Windham. Back in the ring, Anderson locked in a body scissor on Windham, putting tremendous pressure on the champion's back. Anderson jumped off the second rope, connecting with a double axe handle to the back of Windham. He then wrenched in a Boston Crab on Windham, with the champion powering out of it. Anderson caught Windham with a spinebuster, getting the 3 count to tie things up. In the final fall, Windham spiked Anderson with a cradle pile driver, with Dangerously putting his client's foot on the bottom rope to break the pinfall attempt. Anderson fought back, locking Wyndham in a figure 4 and grabbing the ropes for leverage behind the referee's back. Wyndham rolled over to reverse the pressure, with a pain-filled Anderson reaching for the ropes to break the hold. The champion connected with a series of right hands to the face of Anderson, sending him tumbling to the floor. Wyndham dragged Anderson back in, setting him up on the top rope. Stunning Steve Austin ambushed Wyndham to cause a disqualification. A 2-on-1 beatdown ensued until officials pulled Wyndham away to safety. On the June 13th edition of Worldwide Wrestling, Barry Windham defended the World Television Championship against Stunning Steve Austin. Paulie dangerously distracted Wyndham from ringside, allowing Austin to gain the advantage. Austin slammed Wyndham off the top rope and then wrenched in a bear hug, with the champion biting the nose of Austin to break the hold. Wyndham dodged a somersault shoulder tackle, with Austin colliding with the steel ring post. The champion made a pinfall attempt, with referee Bill Alfonso making the 3 count, but then noticing that Austin's foot was under the bottom rope. Dangerously entered the ring to distract the official, allowing Austin to strike Wyndham with the championship belt. Austin scored the pinfall victory to become the new World Television Champion. Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Paulie dangerously, who was elated that Austin had regained the World Television title. Ventura asked dangerously about Larry Zbyszko leaving the Dangerous Alliance. Dangerously said that he hates Zbyszko's guts, and he's looking for someone to replace him. He closed by saying, "He who lives by the phone, dies by the phone." The June 13th episode of Saturday Night saw Jim Ross interview the new Vice President of Wrestling Operations, Cowboy Bill Watts. He said that WCW and TBS were going to set the standard for wrestling and not become a macabre cartoon. Watts said that there would be a new set of rules and said that he was making Ole Anderson the senior referee to maintain law. Out came Ole, who said that he would maintain that law and order and said that the fans would start seeing the best wrestling around. Watts said that he was removing the padding from around the ring, saying WCW is the real deal. Later, Eric Bischoff revealed more new rules, with the first being that top rope moves were banned. Ramming your opponent's head against a steel ring post or guardrails would cause a disqualification. Jim Ross interviewed Cactus Jack, who hid an elbow through a wooden crate to demonstrate what he was going to do to Sting's ribs at Beach Blast. The World Heavyweight Champion Sting battled Diamond Dallas Page, defeating him with the Scorpion Deathlock. United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude cut a promo with Medusa by his side. Rude discussed his upcoming Iron Man match against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at Beach Blast. He discussed the endurance needed for a 30-minute match, saying, "I haven't been to bed since 1972, for sleeping purposes, that is." Rude said that 30 minutes is nothing to him, but will be an eternity for Steamboat. He provoked Steamboat, asking who would support his family once he was gone. The Clash of the Champions took place on June 16th and was highlighted by matches from the first round of the NWA World Tag Team Championship Tournament. In the opening match, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Nikita Koloff defeated Dean and Joe Malenko to advance in the tournament. Jesse the Body Ventura conducted an in-ring interview with the World Heavyweight Champion, Sting. Dressed in a tuxedo, Sting answered Ventura's probing questions, saying he wasn't afraid of Big Van Vader thanks to the support of the Stingers. He sent a message to Vader, saying, "The Stinger is ready for you." Flying Brian Pillman teamed with Jushin Thunder Liger to face the Canadian team of Chris Benoit and Beef Wellington. A hard-hitting battle ensued, with all four giving it their all in a great back-and-forth match. Pillman met Benoit on the top rope, back suplexing him all the way to the canvas below. Since the bout was contested under NWA rules, the top rope was legal, which allowed Pillman to hit Benoit with a missile dropkick. Benoit rolled to the floor, with Pillman diving off the apron onto him with a high cross body. The two began chopping one another's chests in the aisle, with their shots echoing through the arena. Soon after, Liger dove off the top rope, landing on Wellington in the aisle. Back in the ring, Wellington wore down Liger and tagged in Benoit. On the top rope, Benoit launched Liger with a back suplex. Liger reversed it in mid-air, landing on top of Benoit as they crashed to the canvas. The action continued, with Liger nailing an acai moonsault off the top rope, crashing onto Benoit on the floor. All four battled it out, with Pillman and Benoit engaging in a brutal chop fest on the floor. Liger moonsaulted off the top rope, landing on Wellington and scoring the pinfall victory. In the main event, the Steiner brothers battled Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy in a second-round match in the NWA World Tag Team Championship Tournament. It was as bruising as expected, with tempers flaring and all four dishing out punishment. In an impressive feat of strength, Scott Steiner took down Gordy with a Tiger Bomb. Gordy dodged a Frankensteiner and wrenched in a STF on Scott. Williams tagged in, attacking the back of Scott, with Gordy making the tag back in to hit a big power slam. Rick got the tag, clotheslining Williams over the top rope and to the floor. He then engaged in a slugfest with Gordy. As all four brawled, Rick hit Williams with a power slam and made the cover, only to find out he wasn't the legal man. All four brawled on the floor, with referee Randy Anderson losing control. Williams pressed Scott over his head, dropping him into a power slam for a 2 count. With the referee's back turned, Scott attempted a belly-to-belly suplex on Williams. Gordy clipped the leg of Scott, with Williams landing on top. The referee turned around to make the 3 count, with Williams and Gordy winning the match to advance to the finals of the tournament. The June 20th edition of Worldwide Wrestling saw Jesse the Body Ventura interview Nikita Koloff. Ventura questioned Koloff about an envelope he'd received from the Dangerous Alliance. Koloff said that they made him a great offer and he'd like to give Paulie Dangerously his response. Out came Medusa, with Koloff telling her that despite American men and women being equal, he doesn't consider Medusa his equal. Koloff said that he wants nothing to do with the Dangerous Alliance. Instead, he wants a shot at ravishing Rick Rude's United States Championship. The June 20th episode of Saturday Night saw the American Dream Dusty Rhodes interview Arn Anderson, who was focused. Anderson said that it was time to do something for himself, and he's coming after Sting's World Heavyweight Championship. He said, "Down on the mat, you're just a regular man, and you bleed just like I do. Anything that bleeds, I can beat." Beach Blast took place on June 20th, live on pay-per-view, featuring an ocean backdrop with 2 mounds of sand on each side and a stage made of wooden planks leading to the ramp. In the opening match, Flying Brian Pillman defended the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship against Scotty Flamingo. Pillman attempted a dive over the top rope, with Flamingo moving and Pillman landing face first onto the ramp. Flamingo dragged Pillman into the ring and nailed a flying knee drop to pick up a pinfall victory and become the new WCW Light Heavyweight Champion. Johnny B. Bad hosted a bikini contest between Missy Hyatt and Medusa, which consisted of 3 rounds. The first was the evening gown round, with both Hyatt and Medusa wearing their best gowns to show off for the crowd. The WCW Heavyweight Champion Sting battled Cactus Jack in a Pinfalls Anywhere on the Gulf Coast match. Cactus made his entrance, waiting on the ramp for Sting, with the two charging at one another to kick things off. They battled up the aisle, where Sting hit Cactus with a bulldog onto the ramp. Sting charged at Cactus, who moved, with the champion getting caught up in the ropes. Cactus ran off the ring apron, hitting an elbow drop onto Sting on the concrete floor. Racing off the apron again, Cactus leaped over Sting, taking him down with a sunset flip for a 2 count on the floor. Cactus charged at Sting, who backdropped the challenger over the guardrail and into the crowd, with Cactus smashing his back on the concrete floor. Sting hopped the guardrail, suplexing Cactus on the concrete floor for a 2 count. The champion whipped Cactus against the steel guardrail, with the challenger tumbling over. The two finally entered the ring, with Cactus catching Sting with a short arm clothesline. Cactus took the champion to the mat, wrapping him in a body scissor and clawing at his face. Sting fought out of it with elbows, but was soon sent sailing over the top rope via a Cactus Jack running clothesline. They battled around ringside, with Cactus bashing Sting across the back repeatedly with a steel chair. As Cactus dragged Sting around ringside, the champion retaliated with a belly-to-back suplex onto the concrete floor. Sting raced towards Cactus, who caught the stinger and dropped him sternum first onto a guardrail. Cactus attempted a pile driver, but his knee gave out, leaving Sting unharmed. Leaping off the second turnbuckle, Cactus attempted a flying elbow drop. Sting moved, with Cactus smashing onto the concrete. The fight returned to the ramp, with Sting bashing Cactus repeatedly with a steel chair. Sting attempted a scorpion deathlock, with Cactus rolling out of it and knocking them both off the ramp. Cactus dragged Sting back onto the ramp, spiking him with a double-arm DDT for a 2 count. Sting recovered, jumping off the top rope to take Cactus down with a flying clothesline. This was enough to keep Cactus down, with Sting scoring the pinfall victory on the ramp. The United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude battled Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a non-title 30-minute Iron Man match. Steamboat's wife Bonnie and their son accompanied the Dragon to the ring. Things kicked off immediately, with Steamboat attacking the ribs of Rude. Steamboat locked Rude in a Boston Crab, adjusting positions to intensify the pain. Rude made it to the ropes to break the hold, with Steamboat continuing to batter the wounded ribs of the champion. Out of nowhere, Rude kicked Steamboat square in the face, scoring a pinfall victory to gain a point. Moments later, Rude nailed a Rude Awakening, pinning Steamboat to gain a 2nd point. Leaping off the top rope, Rude nailed Steamboat with a flying knee drop. While it caused damage, Rude was disqualified, with Steamboat earning a point. Rude rolled up Steamboat with an inside cradle, getting the 3 count to earn his 3rd point. The champion locked Steamboat in a camel clutch, with the Dragon powering to his feet, lifting Rude in the air, and falling backwards to provide a harsh landing. Steamboat attempted a splash, with Rude getting his knees up, burying them in the ribs of the Dragon. Rude drilled Steamboat with a pile driver, with the Dragon barely kicking out of a pinfall attempt. Steamboat reversed a tombstone pile driver, spiking Rude with one of his own. The Dragon scored a pinfall to make the score 3-2. Both men battled to the top rope, with the Dragon superplexing Rude to the mat below. Rude barely kicked out of a pinfall attempt, with he and Steamboat then engaging in a double clothesline. Steamboat bridged out of a pin attempt and pinned Rude with a backslide to tie things up at 3. Both scrambled for a pinfall in a series of attempts, with each barely kicking out in an exciting exchange. Rude attempted a rude awakening, with Steamboat powering out of it and hitting one of his own on Rude for a 2 count. Steamboat planted Rude with a suplex, followed by a belly-to-back suplex for a 2 count. With 3 minutes remaining, Rude locked in a sleeper hold, with Steamboat's eyes soon glazed over. 2 minutes remained, with Steamboat fighting to remain conscious. The fans rallied behind the Dragon, who powered up to his feet with 1 minute remaining. With the sleeper still locked in, Steamboat kicked off the top rope, landing on Rude and scoring a pinfall to make it 4-3. Rude panicked, scrambling for a pinfall with 30 seconds remaining. Steamboat kicked out of every attempt, with the clock running out, and the Dragon declared the winner. Johnny B. Bad hosted round 2 of the Miss WCW competition, the swimsuit contest. Both Medusa and Missy Hyatt strutted down the aisle in their swimsuits, with Missy getting a louder reaction from the fans. However, based on fans that were voting on the WCW hotline, Medusa was ahead in points. Tony Schiavone attempted to interview Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, only to be interrupted by Paul E. Dangerously. While Dangerously proclaimed that Steamboat would never get a shot at the United States title, Cactus Jack ambushed the Dragon. Officials rushed to the scene to pry apart Steamboat and Cactus. Jesse the Body Ventura joined Johnny B. Bad for the final round of the Miss WCW competition. In the bikini contest, Medusa strut down the aisle, but Missy Hyatt claimed her bikini was stolen. Thinking fast, Missy tied some scarves together to form a makeshift bikini, winning the competition. Medusa became irate, attacking Bad in the changing room. Out came Bad, holding Medusa's top. Ventura entered the changing room, poking his head back out with a smile on his face and saying that Medusa is the winner. In the main event, the WCW World Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers, battled Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Both teams punished one another with hard-hitting maneuvers in a competitive bout. Gordy sat on the top rope, with Williams front suplexing Rick onto Gordy's shoulder. This led to Gordy power slamming Rick all the way to the canvas below. Rick battled back valiantly and tagged in his brother Scott, who cleaned house. Scott planted Gordy with a Tiger Bomb and a Frankensteiner. The time limit expired before Scott could make a cover, with the match declared a draw. The July 4th episode of Saturday Night saw Jim Ross interview Cactus Jack, who revealed that he was being paid real well to take out Ricky the Dragon Steamboat from wrestling. Cactus said that he was done with random acts of violence and he's targeting the best. He said that soon, Steamboat would be feeling a lump in his throat. That lump would be his liver. After defeating Michael P.S. Hayes, World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin joined Paul E. Dangerously for an interview with Jim Ross. Austin claimed that he could beat Barry Windham in under 5 minutes. Out came Windham, challenging Austin to meet him in the ring. Wrestlers and officials began to get between the two, until Cowboy Bill Watts waved everyone off to allow Austin and Windham to settle their differences. They battled back and forth until Windham covered Austin and Dustin Rhodes rolled in to make the 3 count. Jim Ross interviewed Cowboy Bill Watts, who said that the fans want quality, not quantity. With that, Watts said that the United States Tag Team Championships would be retired at the end of the month. Jim Ross interviewed the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Sting, who discussed his upcoming match at the Great American Bash against Big Van Vader. Sting showed no fear and said he'd take care of Vader at the Bash. The July 11th edition of Saturday Night featured footage from a live event that took place 6 days prior at the Omni. Brad Armstrong defeated Scotty Flamingo to become the new WCW Light Heavyweight Champion. We also saw footage from a match between the World Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers, and Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. In the closing moments, Scott took down Gordy with a Frankensteiner, but soon got hit with a lariat from Williams. Gordy made the cover, scoring the pinfall victory. Williams and Gordy were crowned the new WCW World Tag Team Champions. The Great American Bash took place on July 12th and featured the tournament to crown new NWA World Tag Team Champions. In the opening match, Flyin' Brian Pillman teamed with Jushin Thunder Liger to face Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Nikita Koloff. A highly competitive bout ensued, with all 4 wrestlers giving it their all in a great display of athleticism. In the end, Pillman dove off the top rope with a high cross body. Steamboat rolled through and scored a pinfall victory over Pillman. Koloff and Steamboat advanced in the tournament. Tony Schiavone interviewed Cowboy Bill Watts and Hiro Matsuda, discussing the upcoming NWA World Heavyweight Championship Tournament taking place next month. Watts handed the historic Big Gold Belt over to Matsuda with a new champion to be crowned in Tokyo in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes battled the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude and the World Television Champion Stunning Steve Austin, who had Medusa in their corner. A competitive bout ensued until Medusa got involved, distracting the referee. Meanwhile, Rude dove off the top rope with a missile dropkick, connecting with Windham for a 2 count. Rude spiked Windham with a pile driver, with Rhodes breaking up a pinfall attempt. Austin tagged in, continuing to wear down Windham until Rhodes made the tag to clean house. All 4 battled in the ring until Rhodes dove off the top rope with a flying clothesline, taking down Austin and scoring the pinfall victory. Windham and Rhodes advanced in the tournament. Sting defended the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against Big Van Vader, who had Harley Race in his corner. The champion got right in the face of Vader at the bell, with the challenger wearing down the Stinger with clubbing forearms. Vader charged, with Sting moving, taking down a wary challenger with a back suplex, and then a clothesline over the top rope to the floor. Sting continued to strike until Vader countered a sunset flip by dropping down onto the chest of the champion, crushing him. Vader connected with an elbow drop and a big splash, with Sting refusing to stay down. Dragging the champion to the middle of the ring, Vader applied his own version of the Scorpion Deathlock. Sting writhed in pain, inching towards the ropes until finally powering out of the hold. Vader began slugging Sting in the face with right hands, followed by a big clothesline. The challenger hit a power slam, with Sting barely kicking out. Out of desperation, Sting bounced back from an Irish whip, bashing Vader with a somersault dropkick, followed by a DDT. Vader attempted to climb the ropes, with Sting knocking him over and lifting him across his shoulders. Sting fell backwards with a Samoan drop, crushing Vader, who barely kicked out of a pinfall attempt. Vader lifted Sting up for a back suplex, with the champion's legs knocking down the referee. Sting connected with a German suplex, with a wary referee making the count, and Vader barely kicking out. The champion connected with a Stinger splash, and then shoved Vader into another corner. Sting leaped through the air, connecting with another Stinger splash, but overshooting Vader and smashing his own forehead on a steel turnbuckle. Vader covered a bloody Sting, who barely kicked out. The challenger planted Sting with a powerbomb in the middle of the ring and scored the pinfall victory. Big Van Vader was crowned the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Backstage, Eric Bischoff interviewed the new World Heavyweight Champion, Big Van Vader, and Harley Race, who said, "The myth has been destroyed." Race called Vader the King of Athletes, and then the King of Wrestling. Vader said, "The pain game has been taught, the lesson has been learned." In the main event, Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes battled the WCW World Tag Team Champions, Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, in the finals of the NWA World Tag Team Title Tournament. After a hard-fought battle, all four brawled with one another in the ring. Williams struck Rhodes with a lariat and scored the pinfall victory. In a span of 7 days, Williams and Gordy had won both the NWA and WCW World Tag Team Championships. The July 25th edition of Worldwide Wrestling saw Ravishing Rick Rude defend the United States Championship against Nikita Koloff. Rude spiked Koloff with a jumping pile driver, with the Russian Nightmare barely kicking out of a pinfall attempt. Koloff battled back, pulverizing Rude until Medusa hopped onto the apron for a distraction. With Koloff's attention diverted, Rude attacked. Koloff fought back and tossed Rude over the top rope, causing an immediate disqualification. The fight continued, with Rude and Koloff brawling up the aisle, with officials and security trying to pull them apart. They were unsuccessful, with Rude and Koloff continuing their fight backstage. Koloff chased Rude into his dressing room, only to be ambushed by other wrestlers. The August 8th edition of Saturday Night featured footage from 6 days prior in Baltimore, Maryland. Ravishing Rick Rude defended the United States Championship against Nikita Koloff. Rude accidentally knocked out the referee with a clothesline, allowing Koloff to strike the champion with a Russian sickle. Koloff made the cover, with no referee to make the count. Cactus Jack rolled in, with Koloff making quick work of him. Rude ambushed Koloff with a steel chair, which caused Sting to race to the ring. Sting fought off both Rude and Cactus, and bashed them with the chair. The Stinger pressed Rude over his head, with referees urging Sting to put Rude down. Sting didn't listen, dumping Rude over the top rope and onto Cactus on the floor. Making his debut, Jake the Snake Roberts ran through the crowd and into the ring, ambushing Sting. With chair in hand, Roberts bashed Sting and a referee with a steel chair. Roberts then DDT'd Sting headfirst onto the steel chair, twice. After putting a black glove over his right hand, Roberts reached into his ominous green bag. Members of the locker room raced to the ring, with Roberts closing the bag and slithering away. Executive Vice President of Wrestling Operations, Cowboy Bill Watts, announced that despite Sting being injured, there would still be a WCW World Heavyweight Championship match. Out came potential contenders, who wrote their name on a piece of paper and put it in a bag. Gary Michael Capetta reached into the bag and pulled out a name: the All-American Ron Simmons. With Harley Race in his corner, Big Van Vader defended the World Heavyweight Championship against Ron Simmons. The two pummeled one another in a hard-hitting bout. Vader attempted a powerbomb, with Simmons wiggling free and planting the champion with a power slam. The referee made the 3 count, with Jim Ross on commentary saying, "Simmons got it. Simmons has won the match. Simmons is the champion." Ron Simmons was crowned the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, with members of the locker room celebrating with him in a monumental moment. Once Simmons was alone in the ring, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes congratulated the new champion. Backstage, Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Jake the Snake Roberts about his attack on Sting. Roberts said that he doesn't like Sting because he reminds him of another person who would tell the children that they had a shot in life. He said that person used to tell people to train, say their prayers, and take their vitamins. Roberts revealed that he was talking about his own father, spitting on the ground. He said that his father never told him that he was going to have to fight for everything. Roberts said, "Tell the kids in the ghetto that it's easy, Sting." He said that he was tired of doing the right thing because there is no right thing. Roberts said that the only right thing to do in life is survival. He took out his black glove, claiming that it was his protection from all the evils in the world. Roberts said, "I have a thirst that cannot be quenched and a hunger that cannot be satisfied. I am going to make your life one living hell." The August 15th episode of WCW Saturday Night featured footage from a press conference held at CNN Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Ron Simmons gave his victory speech, with Theodore R. Long snapping the World Heavyweight Championship around the waist of the new champion. Simmons said, "It's gonna take an act of Congress to get it off my waist." He said he would be a people's champion, thanking them for their support. Jim Ross interviewed Big Van Vader, who was accompanied by Harley Race. Vader said that the only reason he lost the World Heavyweight Championship is because he trained for Sting, but Ron Simmons showed up. He said, "I trained for Muhammad Ali, but who showed up? Mike Tyson. I trained for Godzilla, but who showed up? King Kong." Vader said that WCW tricked him, and now there's a price that Ron Simmons is going to have to pay. Race said, "You're going down." The August 29th edition of Worldwide Wrestling featured footage of Eric Bischoff interviewing newcomer Eric Watts, son of Cowboy Bill Watts. Watts said that he was making the jump from collegiate football to pro wrestling. Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes were training in the ring, stopping to offer Watts a chance to learn from them. Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Jake the Snake Roberts, who said that people wonder why he does the things he does. Roberts said that he's the hunter, not the hunted. He said, "I don't want a piece of the world, I want the whole world." Roberts called all the other wrestlers squirrels just trying to get a nut from his tree. He said, "Every seed that the WCW plants, I will either pour enough water on it to drown it, or I will pour enough heat on it to burn it." The August 29th episode of Saturday Night saw Jim Ross interview Cowboy Bill Watts, who addressed the recent actions of Jake the Snake Roberts and Cactus Jack. Watts said that he'd be fining Roberts $25,000, while Cactus was fined $5,000. From this point forward, anybody that leaves the broadcast position to join a fight in the ring will receive an automatic fine. Earlier in the day, Cactus Jack interviewed Jake the Snake Roberts in an empty arena. Roberts said that his attack on Sting wasn't personal, it's only because he's the marquee player. He didn't have kind words to say for Dustin Rhodes, with footage airing of Roberts attacking Rhodes in the aisle at the Omni. Roberts said that ever since he was a child, he's always found fun in doing the things you're not supposed to. Jim Ross interviewed the WCW Light Heavyweight Champion, Brad Armstrong, who was on crutches. Just as Armstrong said that he was going to be ready to fight at the Clash of the Champions, he was interrupted by Flying Brian Pillman. In a classy move, Pillman called Armstrong a great athlete and said he knows he's in for a great match. The August 30th edition of the main event saw Cactus Jack battle the natural Dustin Rhodes. They battled to the floor, where Rhodes backdropped Cactus onto the concrete floor. Back in the ring, Cactus dodged a bulldog, tossing Rhodes across the ring and knocking him to the floor with a baseball slide. Cactus somersaulted off the apron, landing on Rhodes on the floor. Back in the ring, Rhodes threw a flurry of fists at Cactus, with the fighting going back to the floor. As they brawled up the aisle, the referee counted both men out. The Clash of the Champions 20 took place on September 2nd, celebrating 20 years on the TBS network. Tony Schiavone and Missy Hyatt stood outside center stage, where a red carpet was laid out for the arrival of wrestlers and personalities. They interviewed Gordon Solie and surprise guest Andre the Giant, followed by the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons. Cowboy Bill Watts arrived with his wife and baseball legend Hank Aaron interviewed next. WCW President Bill Shaw was the next guest, followed by Jim Barnett, WCW Vice President Bob Dew, and all-time great Bruno Sammartino. The living legend said that he was thrilled to be back in an organization that had the wrestling that he loves. Sting arrived riding a Harley-Davidson, with Schiavone then pitching to Theodore R. Long. A Georgia City Councilman presented Bill Watts with a plaque that declared it WCW Day. The American Dream Dusty Rhodes spoke next, saying they were going to get funky like a monkey. In the opening match, Stunning Steve Austin defended the World Television Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Per stipulation, the bout would be no disqualification, and Paul E. Dangerously would be locked in a shark cage and suspended high above the ring. They battled back and forth, with Austin targeting the ribs of Steamboat. The Dragon reversed a tombstone piledriver, drilling Austin headfirst onto the mat, with the champion barely kicking out of a pinfall attempt. Austin attempted a superplex, with Steamboat holding onto the top rope and front suplexing Austin to the mat below. Both men traded pinfall attempts, with Austin elbowing Steamboat in the face to knock him over the top rope and to the floor. Steamboat crawled under the ring, emerging from the opposite side, and catching Austin off guard with a high cross body off the top rope to score the pinfall victory. The Dragon was crowned the new World Television Champion. Jim Ross interviewed Bruno Sammartino, who praised the bout between Steamboat and Austin. Sammartino said he was thrilled to see the type of wrestling he's used to, not the league that he considered an embarrassment. Theodore R. Long interviewed Bullet Bob Armstrong and Thunderbolt Patterson. A pre-taped interview aired, with Mr. Wrestling 2 sending his best and praising the product. Comments aired from media mogul Ted Turner, who said that he was glad to see WCW going back to a traditional style that focused on athleticism. Tony Schiavone interviewed Cowboy Bill Watts, announcing that Brad Armstrong was injured and would be stripped of the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Brad Armstrong, only to be interrupted by Flying Brian Pillman. Disappointed, Pillman called the entire situation a disgrace and insulted Armstrong. Provoking Armstrong, he said that his father was let down by his son not competing. Officially a heel, Pillman called Armstrong gutless and a coward. Pillman slapped Armstrong across the face before storming off the set. A vignette aired, highlighting the college football and pro wrestling accomplishments of the World Heavyweight Champion, the All-American Ron Simmons. Footage aired from the finals of the NWA World Title Tournament, with Masahiro Chono defeating Ravishing Rick Rude to win the gold. Ron Simmons successfully defended the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against Cactus Jack. Following the match, Jim Ross interviewed Cactus Jack, who was backed by the Barbarian. Cactus said that he found someone that's going to take the gold away from Simmons, his former Doom tag team partner, Butch Reed. In the main event, Sting, Nikita Koloff, and the Steiner brothers battled Big Van Vader, the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, Jake the Snake Roberts, and the Super Invader in an elimination match. The bout featured hard-hitting competition at a rapid pace, with the first elimination occurring when Roberts rolled up Koloff for a 3 count. Sting evened the odds, pinning the Super Invader after a Bulldog for an elimination. The Steiner brothers battered Vader, with Scott making a crucial mistake by jumping off the top rope to cause an elimination. Rude hit Rick Steiner with a rude awakening on the concrete floor, with Vader beating the count and Rick counted out. Sting got his hands on Roberts, hitting him with a Stinger Splash. Medusa distracted the referee, with Rude clotheslining Sting as he attempted to apply a Scorpion Deathlock on Roberts. Threatening to take the snake out from his green bag, Roberts distracted the referee. This allowed Vader to hit a big splash off the top rope, crushing Sting and his own partner, Rude. Vader was disqualified for jumping off the top rope. Roberts dragged Rude to their corner and made the tag, spiking Sting with a DDT and scoring the pinfall victory. The winners were Jake the Snake Roberts and Ravishing Rick Rude. The ban on top rope maneuvers was overturned based on a fan vote, with 88% voting to abolish the rule. A vignette aired to hype Halloween Havoc, with Medusa sneaking underground to a secret club. She knocked on the door, with the doorman saying, "Spin the wheel." Medusa said the password, "Make the deal." The doorman let her in, with patrons banging on their tables and saying in unison, "Spin the wheel, make the deal." Medusa approached a giant wheel, with stipulations painted onto each saw blade of the monstrous structure. A little person wearing an eye patch offered Medusa various weapons of destruction. Just as Medusa was about to pull the lever to set off the wheel, she was stopped in her tracks at the sight of Sting in the doorway. Jake the Snake Roberts laughed, saying he knew that Sting would show up. Roberts said he wanted to finish what he started, with Sting saying that Roberts talked too much. With Sting outnumbered, Roberts revealed their deal for Halloween Havoc. 12 stipulations appeared on the wheel, which would be spun the night of the event. Whichever stipulation the wheel stops at will be the bout that Sting and Roberts would compete in. Sting wasn't afraid, but neither was Roberts, who said they were playing by his terms. Putting his hand on the lever, Sting spun the wheel. Sting and Roberts stared at one another, with lasers shooting from their eyes, to end the vignette. The September 6th episode of the main event saw Cactus Jack battle the Natural Dustin Rhodes in a Pinfalls Anywhere match. Things started strong, with both men brawling in the aisle and around ringside. They traded pinfall attempts on the floor until brawling up to the interview area. Rhodes bashed Cactus with a trash can and then dragged him into the ring. Returning to the floor, Rhodes attempted a bulldog, with Cactus thwarting his efforts by shoving him against a steel ring post. Cactus grabbed the timekeeper's table, suplexing it onto Rhodes. He then grabbed a chair, bashing Rhodes repeatedly with it. Cactus back suplexed Rhodes onto the concrete floor with a sickening thud. Rhodes got hold of the chair, using it in the ring to batter Cactus. He charged at Cactus, who moved, with Rhodes tumbling over the top rope and onto the apron. Cactus dove off the apron with an elbow drop, scoring the pinfall victory on Rhodes on the concrete floor. The September 12th episode of Saturday Night saw Jim Ross interview Cowboy Bill Watts, who made an announcement. Watts said that after consideration, the top rope rule would be rescinded, but only for the light heavyweight division. He was still considering whether or not to allow the heavyweights to use the top rope. Shane Douglas made his return, competing against the Super Invader. In an upset, Douglas defeated the Invader with a belly-to-belly suplex. The September 19th episode of Saturday Night saw Jake the Snake Roberts cut a promo hyping his match against Sting at Halloween Havoc. Roberts warned Sting about the Sinister Wheel, saying he was the master of all 12 matches. The September 26th episode of Saturday Night began with Jake the Snake Roberts battling Dustin Rhodes. Roberts played mind games early on, tricking Rhodes into thinking he'd suffered a legitimate injury. Once Rhodes showed compassion, Roberts struck. After taking a beating, Rhodes countered a DDT and took down Roberts with a short-arm clothesline. Rhodes pounced at Roberts with another clothesline, only gaining a 2 count. Moments later, Rhodes hit the running bulldog and made the cover, with Roberts getting his foot on the ropes. Rhodes began to celebrate, only to be ambushed by Roberts, who hit the DDT and scored the pinfall victory. A pre-recorded message aired from Cowboy Bill Watts, who announced that the ban on the top rope has been rescinded. However, if you come off the top rope targeting the head or the throat, you will be disqualified. Jim Ross interviewed Jake the Snake Roberts, who was holding a King Cobra while he hyped his upcoming match at Halloween Havoc against Sting. A pre-taped interview aired, with Tony Schiavone conducting a sit-down interview with Bruno Sammartino. The living legend talked about his disgust for the direction wrestling has gone in leagues that he used to love. Sammartino was happy that WCW was going in a direction he's in love with. He said that fans across the country will get a chance to see what real wrestling is all about. The October 3rd edition of Saturday Night featured a pre-taped sit-down interview Tony Schiavone conducted with Shane Douglas. They talked about Douglas's mentor, Magnum TA, who Douglas said he has great respect for. Douglas said, "I want to be the very best in this sport." He said that Magnum has been teaching him the belly-to-belly suplex, which Douglas wants to use to become a world champion. A vignette aired, featuring Cactus Jack training the Barbarian for his World Heavyweight Championship match against Ron Simmons at Halloween Havoc. Cactus sat in a truck, which was strapped to Barbarian, who dragged Cactus down the road. He screamed for the Barbarian to work harder and faster, with Barbarian running faster to drag the truck and Cactus along. In the main event, the Unified World Tag Team Champions, Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, faced Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham. It was a hard-fought bout, with Williams and Gordy double-teaming Windham to gain an early advantage. The champions wore down Windham, with the fans and Rhodes rallying behind him. Gaining his second win, Windham tagged in Rhodes, who took the fight to the champions. Gordy took down Rhodes with a huge lariat, which the Natural barely kicked out of. The champions took down Rhodes with a double shoulder tackle, but still couldn't keep him down. Windham tagged back in, superplexing Gordy off the top rope and floating over, with Williams breaking up a pinfall attempt. Rhodes snuck in behind the referee's back, taking down Gordy with a running bulldog. Wyndham covered Gordy, scoring the pinfall victory. Wyndham and Rhodes were crowned the new Unified World Tag Team Champions. The October 10th episode of Saturday Night saw Jim Ross interview Cowboy Bill Watts, who made an announcement. With the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude and Medusa close by, Watts said that at Halloween Havoc, both Rude and the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Masahiro Chono would be allowed to each pick their own referee. Hopefully, this would help avoid controversy. Jim Ross stood with Cowboy Bill Watts, where the contract signing took place between Sting and Jake the Snake Roberts for their upcoming match at Halloween Havoc. The contract also relieved WCW of any responsibility should the participants become injured. Sting showed no signs of fear, saying, "Remember something, Jake, the wheel spins for both of us, not just one of us." Roberts attempted to intimidate Sting, saying that there's a mystery choice on the wheel that reads Spinner's Choice. Both wrestlers signed the contract, with Roberts telling Sting that he'd made a foolish mistake. Roberts said, "I will feel comfortably numb when I lay you out." Cactus Jack continued training the Barbarian, this week inside of a wrestling ring. Multiple wrestlers repeatedly slammed Barbarian, with Cactus saying this would help his pupil's back become impenetrable to Ron Simmons' power slam. Everyone piled up on top of Barbarian, who kicked out, throwing them all aside. Cactus told Simmons that at Halloween Havoc, he has a date with Destiny. Footage aired from the main event, where Jim Ross interviewed the new Unified World Tag Team Champions, Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes. They were interrupted by the newly formed team of Flyin' Brian Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin, who issued a challenge. The challenge was accepted. Jim Ross interviewed Pillman and Austin about their upcoming non-title match, with Pillman saying they were excited to prove that they're worthy of a championship match. Pillman said that they were destined for greatness and they were going to prove it. Tony Schiavone hosted a new segment called Up Close, with his guest being Eric Watts. Schiavone asked if he felt pressure since he's the son of Cowboy Bill Watts. Eric laughed and said that he doesn't live by anybody else's expectations. He said that he's going to be the best that Eric Watts can be. Footage aired of Watts' training partners, the Unified World Tag Team Champions Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes, arguing, with Windham angry that Rhodes accepted a match without first consulting him. Watts said that they're under a lot of pressure and trying to be the best team that they can be. Cactus Jack interviewed Jake the Snake Roberts, who is handling an albino cobra. They stood in front of the daunting wheel, with Roberts discussing the possibilities. With the cobra biting the gloved hand of Roberts, he said, "When you play with snakes, sooner or later, you're gonna get bitten." An excited Cactus spun the wheel, with the cobra biting the foam off of the microphone. In the main event, the Unified Tag Team Champions Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes battled the team of Flyin' Brian Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin. Come match time, Windham was nowhere to be found, with Rhodes instead teaming with Brad Armstrong. As a great match ensued, an angry Windham marched to the ring and pulled Rhodes off the apron. They argued, with Rhodes shoving Windham and Windham slapping his partner across the face. Rhodes slapped back. Back in the ring, Pillman and Austin double-teamed Rhodes, with Windham running in to save his partner but cause a disqualification. The champions cleared the ring and stood side by side while Austin and Pillman gloated on the floor. The October 17th edition of Saturday Night began with a hard-fought bout between Flying Brian Pillman and Shane Douglas. After the action spilled to the floor, Pillman rammed Douglas's head off of a steel ring post, causing a disqualification. Pillman continued his assault, with officials prying him off of a wary opponent. Disregarding the officials, Pillman charged, with Douglas taking him down with a belly-to-belly suplex onto the concrete floor. A hype video aired for Eric Watts, showing highlights of his football career and footage of his first victory. Cowboy Bill Watts informed Ravishing Rick Rude that Paulie Dangerously had signed an open contract for him to defend the United States Championship at Halloween Havoc. Rude said he was fine with his match against NWA World Heavyweight Champion Masahiro Chono being title versus title. Watts informed Rude that he'd actually be in a second match, defending his title against Nikita Koloff, with Medusa banned from ringside. Rude became irate, screaming as the show went to a commercial. Cactus Jack put the Barbarian through another training session. Wielding a sledgehammer, Cactus swung at a stack of cinder blocks, which were stacked on top of the back of the Barbarian. After the brick shattered, the Barbarian rose to his feet and flexed his muscles. Cactus smashed a 2x4 over the back of the Barbarian, who barely flinched. Pointing to a pumpkin, Cactus asked the Barbarian to show him what he's going to do to Ron Simmons at Halloween Havoc. Barbarian delivered a big boot to the pumpkin, which exploded on impact. Cactus Jack said, "Haven't you seen enough?" He said that Barbarian was ready to make a sight of Simmons' face. Tony Schiavone hosted an edition of Up Close, interviewing Paulie Dangerously in the stands of an empty arena. Despite not being around, Dangerously said that he still owns options on the contracts of all of his members. Schiavone asked Dangerously why he would sign for Ravishing Rick Rude to face two opponents at Halloween Havoc. A nervous Dangerously thought fast and said that he knew Rude was the best athlete in the world, and he didn't understand why Rude didn't want to wrestle twice. Schiavone asked Dangerously why he would agree to bar Medusa from ringside. An annoyed Dangerously accused Medusa of trying to take credit for the success of Rude. Dangerously said that unlike Medusa, he doesn't think that Rude needs anybody in his corner. Schiavone informed Dangerously that Rude had requested to meet with him face to face. Wide-eyed, Dangerously yelled in Schiavone's face and abruptly ended the interview. Footage aired of a recent bout between the World Television Champion Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Scott Steiner. Steamboat missed a dive and crashed to the floor, with Steiner capitalizing on the injury and scoring the pinfall victory. Scott Steiner was crowned the new World Television Champion. Halloween Havoc took place on October 25th and saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat battle Flyin' Brian Pillman. It was a fast-paced, hard-hitting encounter from the start. Pillman attempted a superplex, but Steamboat held onto the top rope, with Pillman crashing to the mat. Steamboat launched off the ropes, with Pillman drop-kicking him in the face in midair. The Dragon didn't stay down long, diving off the second rope to take down Pillman with a sunset flip, but only for a 2 count. Pillman rolled out of it and made his own pinfall attempt. Steamboat reversed it, scoring the pinfall victory. Cowboy Bill Watts announced that Terry Gordy had breached his contract and thus was suspended indefinitely. Watts also announced that Ravishing Rick Rude had filed an injunction that would allow him to name a surrogate to defend his United States Championship. It would be Big Van Vader that would defend Rude's title to face Nikita Koloff. Ravishing Rick Rude and Harley Race led Big Van Vader to the ring to battle Nikita Koloff. Quickly, the referee banned Rude and Race from ringside to ensure a fair match. Vader and Koloff battered one another in a hard-hitting bout that spilled to the floor. The brutality continued in the ring, where Vader dove off the second rope, crushing Koloff with a big splash. Shockingly, Koloff powered out of a pinfall attempt. Koloff body-slammed Vader, but only gained a 2 count. He then hit Vader with a Russian sickle, knocking him over the top rope and tumbling to the floor. On the floor, Koloff charged with a Russian sickle, with Vader dodging it and Koloff smashing against a steel ring post. Back in the ring, Vader hit Koloff with a powerbomb and scored the pinfall victory. Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes defended the Unified World Tag Team Championships against the pairing of Dr. Death Steve Williams and Stunning Steve Austin. All four gave it their all in a bruising back-and-forth battle, resulting in multiple split-second near falls. Things got out of hand, with the referee rendered unconscious. A second official ran in, with Austin pinning Windham to score the pinfall victory. The initial official ruled that Windham wasn't the legal man, with Rhodes rolling up Austin to get a 2 count, despite the bell ringing. Still, the match continued at a rapid pace, with the clock ticking down and the time limit expiring, with the match declared a draw. Tony Schiavone interviewed Paul E. Dangerously, who stood with Big Van Vader and Harley Race. Dangerously took credit for the victory, with Medusa interrupting, shoving Dangerously aside. Medusa thanked Vader for successfully defending Rude's United States Championship. Dangerously said that he'd had it with Medusa, saying that he's successful because he's a man. He continued cutting a chauvinistic promo, calling Medusa inferior to him. Dangerously proceeded to fire Medusa, shoving her. Medusa kicked Dangerously upside the head and began to pound on him until security and officials broke things up. Sting approached the entrance stage with the giant wheel rising from below. He pulled the lever, with fireworks shooting off for Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. The wheel landed on the Coal Miners Glove match, with the main event set. Masahiro Chono defended the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Ravishing Rick Rude, with both Kensuke Sasaki and Harley Race named as the special guest referees. A coin toss was held to determine who would officiate inside the ring, with Race winning. The match ensued, with Race accidentally getting knocked out after Rude dodged a high knee from Chono. While Sasaki checked on Race, Chono tossed Rude over the top rope. Rude landed on both Race and Sasaki. Back in the ring, Rude planted Sasaki with a rude awakening, but no referee could make the count. Rude dove off the top rope with a flying knee, with Chono rolling out of the way. Chono locked in the STF, with Sasaki calling for the bell while Race waved it off. The referees argued, with Race saying that Chono was disqualified for throwing Rude over the top rope. Sasaki and Race began brawling, with Sasaki taking out both Race and Rude, running them off. Ron Simmons successfully defended the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against the Barbarian, winning with a Seminole Power Slam. In the main event, Sting battled Jake the Snake Roberts in a coal miner's glove match. A giant pole was attached to a corner of the ring with a coal miner's glove hanging at top. Once retrieved, the glove could be used as a weapon. Both men fought to race up the pole, pulling one another down to inflict more damage. On the floor, Roberts bashed Sting across the back with a steel chair. Back in the ring, Roberts dodged a Stinger splash, with Sting crashing against a corner. Roberts planted Sting with a DDT, but hurt himself on impact. As Sting climbed up the pole, Cactus Jack ran to ringside, handing Roberts an ominous black bag. Roberts put on a black glove, pulling out a cobra from the bag just as Sting retrieved the coal miner's glove. Sting put on the glove and punched Roberts on the back. This caused the cobra to bite the cheek of Roberts, allowing Sting to score the pinfall victory. The cobra latched onto the cheek of Roberts, with blood dripping down the face of Jake. Roberts staggered up the aisle, with Cactus helping him through the curtain. The October 31st edition of Saturday Night featured a message from Cowboy Bill Watts, who banned all reptiles from ringside. A vignette aired hyping the King of Cable tournament, narrated by Tony Schiavone. The objective of the tournament was to crown the best wrestler on TBS, with the winner receiving a trophy and a display at CNN Center. All of the first round matches were revealed, with promos airing from half of the competitors. Sporting a band-aid on his chin, Jake the Snake Roberts cut an intense promo talking about the ban on reptiles from ringside. Roberts said that the WCW officials missed the point, saying that he's the real Snake. He said that the real danger is the DDT, saying, "I will use it, I will abuse it, and my friend, I will enjoy it." The November 7th episode of Worldwide Wrestling saw Big Van Vader compete in a handicap match against Joe Thurman and T.C. McCoy. In a gruesome moment, Vader powerbombed Thurman, breaking his back. Vader covered the seriously injured Thurman and scored the pinfall victory. The November 7th edition of Saturday Night saw Tony Schiavone interview Flying Brian Pillman backstage. Pillman invited the Z-Man Tom Zink, saying that ever since he turned on the fans, he's driving a new Porsche and has a harem of women chasing after him. Paulie dangerously butt in, asking if Zink has what it takes. Zink wasn't interested, and says that he didn't respect either one of them. Tony Schiavone hosted an edition of Up Close, joined by his guest, Jake the Snake Roberts. Hyping the effects of the DDT, Roberts said that nobody is capable to execute the move quite like him. Schiavone asked about the ban on reptiles, with Roberts saying that Watts missed the point and the DDT is the real serpent. Roberts hyped his upcoming King of Cable first round match against Dustin Rhodes, saying he was going to hit the mark and advance in the tournament. With Medusa by his side, the United States champion Ravishing Rick Rude battled Barry Windham in a first-round match in the King of Cable tournament. A great back-and-forth encounter ensued, with Rude rolling up Windham and illegally holding onto the ropes out of view of the official to pick up a pinfall victory. In another first-round match in the King of Cable tournament, Sting battled Flyin' Brian Pillman. It was a fast-paced encounter, with Pillman attacking the left knee of the Stinger. Pillman locked in a figure 4 leg lock, holding onto the ropes for leverage until the referee caught on. Pillman dove off the top rope with a high cross body, with Sting rolling through for a 2 count. Sting executed a back suplex on Pillman, bridging with it to score the pinfall victory. The November 14th edition of Saturday Night saw Cowboy Bill Watts make an announcement. Watts said that Jake the Snake Roberts has left the WCW due to personal problems. Taking his place in the King of Cable tournament would be the Barbarian. Jim Ross interviewed the United States champion Ravishing Rick Rude, who was backed by Medusa and the Dangerous Alliance. Rude voiced his disgust for Sting, with the Stinger confronting him face to face. Backed by fellow wrestlers, Sting asked Rude if his friends referred to him as Ricky, Richard, or Dick. As Sting exited, Rude became irate, ripping off his jacket and attacking an enhancement talent in the ring. Rude tore his own shirt off his body as the fans chanted, "We want Sting." The King of Cable tournament continued, with Big Van Vader defeating Tony Atlas after a big splash off the second rope. Backstage, Theodore R. Long interviewed the Natural Dustin Rhodes about his upcoming match against the Barbarian. Cactus Jack raced in, attacking Rhodes and ramming his head repeatedly against a metal locker. Still, wrestlers assisted Rhodes to the ring for his match against the Barbarian in the King of Cable tournament. Miraculously, Rhodes was victorious, winning with a roll-up to advance to the second round. The Clash of the Champions 21 took place on November 18th and saw Cactus Jack, the Barbarian, and Tony Atlas battle the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons and the debuting Too Cold Scorpio in a handicap match. It was chaotic, with Scorpio making a great first impression. Scorpio hit a 450 splash off the top rope onto Atlas and scored the pinfall victory. Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed the winners, with Simmons revealing who his partner was, saying that Scorpio has everything it takes to make it to the top. A music video aired for the team of Johnny Gunn and the Z-Man Tom Zink, getting measured by a tailor for suits. The female staff each took turns taking the measurements of the wrestlers. Both Zink and Gunn had their turns in the changing rooms, with the woman pulling them back in when they tried to escape. Sting battled the United States champion Ravishing Rick Rude in a semi-final match in the King of Cable tournament. 3 judges sat at ringside to ensure that there would be a winner: Larry Zbyszko, Hiro Matsuda, and Ole Anderson. Sting dominated, with Rude looking for safety on the floor. Rude dodged a Stinger splash, with Sting crashing against a steel guardrail. Back in the ring, Rude jumped off the top rope, clubbing Sting over the head with a flying forearm for a 2 count. Rude continued his assault, honing in on the lower back of the Stinger. Sting gained his second wind, tossing Rude around the ring with ease. He dove off the top rope, taking down Rude with a high cross body for a 2 count. Sting tried again, with Rude catching him with a fist to the stomach. With 30 seconds remaining, Sting caught Rude with a Stinger Splash and locked in the Scorpion Deathlock. The 20-minute time limit expired, with the decision forced to go to the judges. Matsuda voted for Sting. Zbyszko voted for Rude. The deciding vote came to Anderson, who voted for Sting, giving him the victory. Sting advanced to the finals of the King of Cable tournament. In the main event, the Unified World Tag Team Champions Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes defended their titles against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Shane Douglas. Things got heated early on, with an intense bout ensuing. Steamboat whipped Rhodes against the ropes, with the Dragon attempting a leapfrog. He didn't make it high enough, with Rhodes inadvertently headbutting the groin of Steamboat, leaving the Dragon writhing in pain on the mat. As Rhodes showed compassion, a livid Windham screamed at his partner to go for the pin. Windham tagged himself in and made the cover, with Steamboat kicking out. Honing in on the injury, Windham hit Steamboat with multiple atomic drops and made the cover. Rhodes broke up the pin attempt, screaming at his partner to show compassion. Both Rhodes and Windham slapped one another, with Rhodes then striking Windham with a punch to the jaw. Douglas hit Windham with a belly-to-belly suplex and scored the pinfall victory. Steamboat and Douglas were crowned the new Unified World Tag Team Champions. Rhodes congratulated the new champions, with a furious Windham looking on, wide-eyed. As Rhodes walked away up the aisle, Windham screamed at him to come back. Rhodes got in the face of Windham, explaining himself. Windham attacked his own partner, spiking him with a DDT. After shoving an official, Windham hit Rhodes with a superplex off the top rope, floating over to strike Rhodes with one more right hand to the face. Officials raced in to restrain Windham. From the locker room, Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed the new Unified World Tag Team Champions, Shane Douglas and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Barry Windham ambushed the champions, bashing them both with a steel chair. Windham rammed both Steamboat and Douglas against the lockers until security burst in and the show faded to black. The November 21st episode of Saturday Night saw Tony Schiavone interview Big Van Vader and Harley Race. Vader hyped his upcoming match with Dustin Rhodes, saying, "Dusty, the great American dream, if you're listening, I'm gonna hit your boy so hard today, your grandchildren are gonna have black eyes." Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff made his return, issuing a challenge to the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Ron Simmons. Orndorff said that he wanted to see if Simmons was man enough to face him next week. A match pitting Sting and Van Hammer against Ravishing Rick Rude and Cactus Jack broke down into complete pandemonium. The Barbarian and Tony Atlas ambushed Sting, with the World Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons racing in to even the odds. The trio of Cactus, Barbarian, and Atlas ganged up on Simmons and ripped the shirt off his back. Big Van Vader ran in, jumping off the second rope to crush Sting with a big splash. Jim Ross interviewed Vader and Harley Race, with Sting racing through the curtain with a 2x4. Sting bashed Vader repeatedly, breaking the 2x4 over the massive back of Vader. In the main event, Big Van Vader battled the natural Dustin Rhodes in a semi-final match in the King of Cable tournament. Despite the attack, Vader was dominant, bruising Rhodes in a brutal bout. Rhodes fought back, leaping off the second rope to take down Vader with a flying shoulder tackle for a 2 count. The fight spilled to the floor, where Rhodes charged, but Vader struck with a vicious lariat. Back in the ring, Vader dove off the second rope, crushing Rhodes with a big splash. Vader scored the pinfall victory, advancing to the finals of the King of Cable tournament. The November 28th edition of Saturday Night saw Ron Simmons defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who had Medusa in his corner. Ravishing Rick Rude interfered, pile-driving Simmons on the concrete floor. The referee made the count, with Orndorff victorious by countout. The December 5th episode of Saturday Night saw Tony Schiavone interview Barry Windham, who said that there's a difference between compassion and friendship. Windham said that Dustin Rhodes made him a loser, and he's cost him a lot of money. He said that he has something to prove, and he's not going to let Rhodes get in the way of him making a living. Windham said, "The Rhodes name means nothing to me." Dustin Rhodes was in action against Stunning Steve Austin, with Barry Windham interfering to cause a disqualification. Windham battered Rhodes, who was being restrained at ringside by Austin. Taking off his boot, Windham swung it wildly, bashing the already injured hand of Rhodes. The main event featured the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons teaming with Sting to face Big Van Vader and the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude. Sting got his hands on Vader, with the big man retreating to the floor. The Stinger jumped off the apron, with Vader catching him and ramming Sting back first against a steel ring post. Back in the ring, both Vader and Rude pummeled Sting mercilessly until the Stinger dodged a big splash from Vader. Simmons tagged in, unleashing a ruthless beatdown on Vader. Harley Race hopped onto the apron, with Sting punching him in the face. The Stinger then clotheslined Vader over the top rope and crashing to the arena floor. Back in the ring, Rude leaped off the top rope with a flying knee drop to the head behind the referee's back. Rude then hit Simmons with a rude awakening and scored the pinfall victory. The December 12th edition of Saturday Night saw Tony Schiavone host Up Close, joined by his guest, the United States Champion Ravishing Rick Rude, who had Medusa by his side. Rude hyped his upcoming World Heavyweight Championship match against Ron Simmons at Starrcade. Medusa produced a manila envelope, with Rude pulling out an X-ray of a badly injured shoulder of Simmons. Rude said that he was going to become the new champion by any means necessary. He closed by saying that he was going to return a favor to Big Van Vader and grant him a World Heavyweight title shot. Barry Windham came out for the main event, telling Jim Ross that Dustin Rhodes was a no-show. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat interrupted, blaming Windham for the injury to Rhodes. Steamboat attacked Windham, with the two circling one another, each with a chair in hand. Dustin Rhodes snuck up behind Windham, snatching the chair out of his hand and swinging at him wildly. Windham ducked, brawling with Rhodes into the ring while officials rushed to the scene. The fistfight continued as the show went off the air. The December 19th edition of Saturday Night saw Tony Schiavone host Up Close, joined by the World Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons. Despite being injured, Simmons said that he's going to defend his title successfully against Ravishing Rick Rude. Starrcade took place on December 28th and began with Eric Bischoff announcing that Ravishing Rick Rude was injured with a herniated disc in his neck. Cowboy Bill Watts and Hank Aaron presented Sting with a ring for winning Battle Bowl 91. Ravishing Rick Rude walked to ringside, claiming that he was stabbed in the back by a neurosurgeon, and now he can't compete for the World Heavyweight Championship. Rude said that WCW was considering stripping him of the United States Championship unless he could get medical clearance. He screamed into the camera saying, "You ain't taking my title." Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Shane Douglas defended the Unified World Tag Team Championships against Barry Windham and Flyin' Brian Pillman. A hard-hitting, fast-paced bout ensued, with all four giving it their all. Pillman dropkicked Douglas off the top rope and tumbling to the concrete floor. Douglas hobbled to his feet, with Windham mowing him down with a clothesline. The beatdown continued in the ring, with Pillman and Windham taking turns dishing out punishment. With the referee's back turned, a frustrated Steamboat bashed Windham across the back with a steel chair. Steamboat tagged in, cleaning house until Windham took him down with a big power slam. With the referee distracted, Pillman tossed Steamboat over the top rope, with Windham Irish whipping him against a steel ring post. Steamboat persevered, launching off the top rope and crashing onto Pillman with a big chop. Windham tagged in, battering Steamboat, with the Dragon chastising his opponents. Douglas tagged in, fighting off both opponents. All four battled, with Steamboat taking Windham over the top rope with a crossbody, landing on the ramp. Pillman charged, with Douglas taking him down with a belly-to-belly suplex for the pinfall victory. Steamboat and Douglas retained the Unified World Tag Team Championships. Sting battled Big Van Vader in the finals of the King of Cable tournament. Harley Race watched on from ringside as Vader shook off Sting's punches and tossed him around the ring with ease. Sting retaliated, drop-kicking Vader in the face and then tossing him with a German suplex. The Stinger charged at Vader with a clothesline, with both men tumbling over the top rope. Just as a frustrated Vader removed his mask, Sting dove over the top rope to take out both Vader and Race. Back in the ring, Sting drilled Vader with a DDT. He upped the ante, with Sting planting Vader with a DDT off the top rope. Sting locked in the Scorpion Deathlock, with Vader making it to the ropes to break the hold. Vader retreated to the floor, with Sting charging at him with a Stinger Splash. At the last second, Vader moved, and Sting crashed against a steel guardrail. Back in the ring, Vader unleashed a flurry of power moves to wear down the Stinger. Vader successfully hit Sting with a big splash, with the Stinger barely kicking out. Sting took Vader down with a backslide, with Vader barely kicking out. They fought to the top rope, where Sting punched Vader in the face repeatedly to send the big man crashing to the canvas below. Somehow, Vader got up first and began to unleash a flurry of stiff forearms to the body of Sting. Once Vader's punches slowed down, Sting battled back with right hands of his own. Sting took down Vader with a fall-away slam, and then nailed a big splash off the top rope. Vader kicked out of a pinfall attempt at 2. Race hopped onto the apron, distracting Sting and allowing Vader to gain the advantage. Vader took Sting down with a chokeslam and then connected with a big splash off the second rope. Sting kicked out at 2. Vader jumped off the top rope, with Sting catching him with a power slam. Sting scored the pinfall victory to win the match and become the King of Cable. Jesse the Body Ventura congratulated Sting and presented him with a giant trophy. The finals of Battle Bowl took place in the main event, with 8 competitors vying for the Battle Bowl ring. It came down to 2 men that had teamed together earlier in the evening, Barry Windham and the Great Muta. They battered one another back and forth until Muta connected with a dropkick that caused Windham to tumble over the top rope. The Great Muta was crowned the winner of Battle Bowl, with fireworks bursting above the ring. Would the exceptional in-ring product of WCW continue in the new year? Find out next time as we continue our WCW arc and cover World Championship Wrestling in 1993. If you'd like to support the show, please like, share, and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram at squared.circle.history. You can also find t-shirts of Squared Circle History and Pro Wrestling Rushmore on Pro Wrestling Tees. Thank you for listening, and keep dropping elbows.